Hi, and welcome to Poker Night Live. That was smooth. It's a very special Poker Night Live because
I don't think they noticed.
No, well, how would they? Because we're in Cosy Corner. We've got a guest who I'll introduce in a second. I'm Nick Wealthall. Caspar Berry's over there. Say hello, Caspar.
Hello.
And we will be bringing you the usual mix of live online games, real players playing for real cash all the time. But I'm delighted to introduce the author of one of the best poker books, I would say, ever, Des.
Well, I'm not going to argue.
Definitely in the top 50. No, it's absolutely cracking. It's receiving rave reviews everywhere. It's this one, Swimming with the, can you get that? Swimming with the Devilfish. And it's basically a study of some of the top pro poker players in the country and internationally and what makes them tick. Is that a fair description?
Yes, it all began because I can't sleep. And so what I do is I get up at 3 or 4 in the morning and I look at television. And they were showing a late night poker that was made so long ago that Simon Trumper still had hair. and I sat there and I thought, I've always loved poker and played it. I thought, who are these people? Why have we never heard of them? Where do they play? How do they make a living? How does it all work? And I was so fascinated that I live in Cornwall, left home that morning when I got up and went to London to find them.
Wow.
And I decided to follow them around for half a year or so and meet them all and get to know them and write a book about it.
Fantastic. Well, we've got the pleasure of your company for an hour, so we're going to get well into it and get to know about these players and about what's in the book and about your experiences with them. And it's a great opportunity for you guys. As usual, fully interactive show. We will have the usual mix of stuff later on tonight, so you can send in your general poker question as well. But for the first hour, you've got a great opportunity to talk to Des, asking questions about these guys, the guys that you've seen on the TV for years now. You spent time, a lot of quality time with people like the Hendon Mob, Devilfish, obviously, that the book's named after, Willie Tan, Paul Jackson, any others spring to mind? Lots more.
Yes, well, basically all the names that they will know from late night poker or from the the international circuit.
Great.
But I would say this: that most of my time was spent with what I would call the older group, the ones who've been around for a decade or so. And so I didn't spend a lot of time with the younger generation. But these are what I call the usual suspects, the guys who you most regularly see on television.
Great. So do get your questions in. In addition to that, we have got some copies of Swimming with the Devilfish that you've kindly brought in as a prize for our viewers, which is great. Des will sign them as well. We'll try and stop Cass from signing them. Restrain them.
I think they quite like her.
They probably would, wouldn't they? And we're going to have a competition question, aren't we? Which we're going to judge the best of. And do you want to tell the guys what it's going to be?
Well, basically, what we're asking you to do is to ring in with, or send in your best poker story, the one that you think just somehow captures the game and the eccentricities of the game. I mean, if I was if I was getting in touch, I would tell you a story about the big event in London last year, the World Poker Exchange event. And Paul Jackson, Action Jack Jackson, and a friend were talking on the phone, and the friend said to Paul, we should go in for this. This is really good value, 2 billion or something, million, huge. Paul said, I can't. I promised my girlfriend we will go for a holiday in a caravan in Dorchester, and she'll kill me if we don't go.
Tough feat, yeah.
And the other guy said, I can't do it because I'm the best man at the wedding. So they thought of a friend of theirs in Cardiff, Ewan Jones. And they rang him up, and this is 1 o'clock in the morning, and the event is due to start at noon that day. And they said, Ewan, get in a car, come to London, we'll put up a third of the money each, and we'll share the winnings if you do well. So Ewan literally got into a car, drove to London, didn't have time to change, eventually appeared in the televised section with egg all over his whatever, won the event, and Paul Jackson, sitting in a caravan in Dorchester, won more money from a tournament than he'd ever won in his life, $250,000. And I think that's just the crazy world that poker
It's insane.
can
That is insane. So guys, we're after your stories about the top players. So we want your favourite story that you've heard about. Could be an American player, that's fine. If it's about somebody in the book, one of the top British pros, so much the better. So get those coming in. The top 3 or 4 will receive a copy of the book, signed copy of the book from Des. Get those coming in, plus your questions that you'd like us to put to Des, and anything else about poker. Here's how you do it, can be easier. Text poker and your question, comment, anecdote, dress size to 84222. Or if you're in possession of an internet-enabled device, such as a computer, you can email poker@pokernightlive.co.uk, poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. And you can go to the website as well if you like, www.pokernightlive.co.uk. You can watch us anywhere in the world, live on the web, which can't be bad. So now tell us how you came to, well, you told us how you came to write the book. How long did it take? What was the process of doing it? How long did you spend with these guys?
Well, I basically toured with them, and I took a little dictaphone, and in breaks and over dinner and over lunch and just wherever I could, I would sit down one by one and get them to tell their story. And they did. They just taught extraordinarily frankly. I don't think poker players are used to attention of this kind, and therefore it didn't cross their mind to do other than just let me have it. And I think I got some really frank stories and insights. And then what I did is I had all of those tapes transcribed and built the book around it to such an extent that I feel that it's the authentic voice of these players comes through. So I've tried to tell the story of professional poker through the eyes of the players themselves, their own words, their own stories, but with me as a kind of amazed spectator winding my way through at the same time.
Yeah.
And you say amazed. What when you look back on it and when you read this book, what's your abiding memory? What's your feeling of, my God, the world is like that, or it had this effect on me?
The thing that struck me most forcibly is that these people like Willie Tan, the Devilfish, Bembos, Stuart Nash, all of these older guys who are still Mickey Wernick, people like that, who are all at the top of the European leaderboard even now, have been around a long time, and for a long time totally unknown, just playing in the Vic or playing in the Rainbow in Birmingham or playing in Spielers or Cellars or backroom clubs and whatever. For a long, long time, they were our professional poker players. They were making only the money they could make in those circumstances. And then what happens? Television picks up poker. And then the internet picks up poker. And suddenly there's a huge influx of money with the various websites all competing by offering higher and higher prizes, bigger and bigger money tournaments, glossy magazines. The whole thing explodes, as we all know it has. And here are these guys, you'd think they'd be thinking, at last, this is our moment. We reach out and we take all this money that is coming our way. And what happens? A whole generation of young guys, 19, 18, 20, 21, come up through the internet and reach out and take it. And so what is happening is, in the book, in a way, we've got a struggle between the older generation fighting to get what they believe is their right. And which they've played for years, and the younger kids coming along, utterly fearless, no great respect for money, because they never had it. And in a way, what I find fascinating and found fascinating throughout was this struggle. And what is interesting is that if you look at who's winning the tournaments, month after month, on the European tour and whatever, it tends to be the younger guys, the Swedes or whatever. But if you look at the European tournament leaderboard, the older guys are there and they're at the top. And I think what's happening is, a young guy comes along and he wins one tournament, right? And then you don't hear of him again. These guys are always there, third place, fourth place, fifth place, whatever. So it's rather like the American Golf Tour. A lot of American golfers who none of us have heard of, and yet they're making a fortune, coming in 10th, 11th, 12th regularly. Well, it's the same thing in poker. But I find that struggle between the older group and the youngsters absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. And let's start to talk a little bit about the individuals involved. The book's called Swimming with the Devilfish. Sounds like a decent place to start. You obviously spent a lot of time with Dave Elliott. Give us your general impression of him as a person and a poker player.
Well, as a poker player, first of all, what is beyond doubt, and what everybody says about him, is he has an extraordinary ability to read what's happening in the game at any given time, to read the other players, to read the cards and whatever. This is his great strength, a really remarkable sort of insight he's got as to what's going on. he came up via a really hard route. I mean, Dave began had a very rough childhood. When he was a kid, he ended up effectively on the streets. He ended up having to leave home, and he got picked up by a couple of petty criminals, who were older than him.
Style.
Yeah, they met him in the bookies, and they more or less said to Dave, "Hey, you've got a lot of talent and ability. Why not join our gang?" So the three of them effectively set out, and they were robbing tobacconists and off licenses and cracking safes. Dave was a safe cracker. I don't think people realise that he spent about 12 or 13 years in this level of crime in Hull. In fact, he spent his 21st birthday in prison, sitting in a cell alone with just 2 cards, one from his mother and one from his wife. And you know, it was tough going. And he had this great gambling thing, and he picked up poker. And poker really, you have to say, saved Dave, because although he actually got out of crime and set up a pawnbroking business and was doing okay. This is a guy with a very strong ego, has a great sort of sense of self and whatever, and poker has enabled him to become someone far beyond what he could have hoped and dreamed of.
Sure.
And then, but he had great ups and downs, great swings of fortune one way or the other. And then he went over to Las Vegas, and he won an event there, and then went back the following year, and everyone thinks of that year as his gold bracelet year, but actually it started catastrophically. He went over with about $250,000.
What year was this? About 2000, 2001?
God, I can't remember off the top of my head. About the turn of the century.
Yeah.
He lost everything. He couldn't win a thing. He lost every penny he had. He borrowed and begged, and he lost the money he borrowed.
I think that was the year, sorry to interrupt you, Des, but I think that was the year that the documentary was made about him getting the bankroll together to go to Vegas. So when he went to Vegas with that bankroll,
and lost a lot.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely on his uppers, and he was travelling with his great mate Gary, and he said to Gary, look,
Gary Bush?
Gary Whitaker, this is the guy who used to drive him everywhere and accompany him for 10 years. Okay. And he said to Gary, I don't know what to say to you. We've just got nothing left. We've had. Somehow they managed to scrape together the buy-in for this last gold bracelet event, the last throw, and Dave won it. And there's a very interesting quote in the book from Paul Maxfield, who also did very well in Las Vegas, who said that the devilfish is at his best when he's broke, when he has to win.
Right.
And he said when he has to win, he plays out of his skin.
He doesn't need cards. Yeah. He just plays.
He just plays. Yeah. And that's when he's at his absolute best.
Do you think there's a chance? I mean, you know, I don't doubt that he does play. He doesn't need cards, but you've played the game. You know, one out draw with by far the best hand, and it can still be all over for you. There's a chance that we might never have heard of the devilfish again after that year. In a way, is there that he could literally have lost everything, and that would have been it?
Well, very easily. Of course, the thing that really made Dave was winning the first late night poker series, and not only winning it, but I've watched the tape of it two or three times, and it is a staggering. His persona on the program, and there's a wonderful hand where he's got 2 aces in the pocket, and he plays it so well that no one has got a clue. I mean, his opponents haven't got a clue, and he's not. And the commentators are saying, why doesn't he go all in, and why doesn't he take the hand down now? But what Dave wanted to do was put the other guy out. He wasn't satisfied with winning the hand. He was going to get that guy right out of the tournament there and then. And it was brilliant.
Yeah, it did make him a legend in.
I remember watching it. I remember sitting in your flat watching that hand. I remember, you know, and how many hands of poker have I seen in my life? And I wasn't watching it, you know, looking back over videos. I was watching it contemporaneously. I remember thinking, there's something about that guy. Do you know what I'm saying? There's something about that guy and that hand that I'm going to remember. You know, and I do.
But you know, Mike Sexton, who fronts the World Poker Tour program. I interviewed him in Paris. I met some fantastic guys doing this book. Mike Sexton is unbelievable. If ever you get the chance to have Mike Sexton sitting where I am, he is one of the great talkers about the game you'll ever hear. And he said to me that the most amazing performance of Dave's was when he won the World Poker Tour event in Tunica. And I mean, he was up against people like Phil Ivey, and he totally dominated the event. And Sexton says it was the best individual performance that he saw and has seen on that show.
Yeah.
But he said he was really sad that the show never reflected it, because Dave was so much in command, so much controlling it, that somehow you didn't get the normal, exchanges of excitement.
Yeah, I've seen that one, and
Yeah.
he's just got a huge stack, hasn't
Yeah.
he? I mean, you don't, obviously, the problem with TV on poker is that you don't get to see how people build their
Yeah.
stacks very often.
Well, that's absolutely right. And the other thing is that they say about Dave that once he's got a big stack, he's
unstoppable.
you might as well go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a question. We had Dave on the show. I have to say it was a real pleasure interviewing. I really liked him. I thought he's an arrogant man. He's a confident man. But when you can get the guy talking, what he says is gold dust. I think.
This is the first time, not the second time.
The first time, not the second time. Yeah. Thank you. So my question to you is, as someone who spent time with him and who knows him, intimately in a way, what is it, if people out there want to read people like the Devilfish does, what is it about his life, his history, his psychology, his outlook, what is it, do you think, that leads to what you said, which is his undeniable ability to see into people and read people?
Well, he's a very hard man, Dave. Don't be in any doubt about it. I mean, the life he's led has made him a hard man. He's a very hard man. So you're dealing with someone who tends to put people, make them uncomfortable or nervous anyway, I think, at the table. He's a bully at the table. I mean,
It's got scary eyes.
It's a tactic, yeah.
Yeah.
It is a bully. When he looks at them over those glasses, he's intimidating them, and he's meaning to intimidate them. Don't be in any doubt about that at all. So he's like, the first thing I'd say about him, he's just a hard man. I mean, everybody says about Dave he has a huge ego, and he knows they say that, and he knows it's true. He does have a big ego. But then, as I say in the book, if you think of people who get to the top in any field, right, Jeff Boycott at cricket, Nick Faldo at golf, and so on. They're always accused of having, Steve Ovett in the old days, they usually say big egos, but in a way you need that. I mean, you need that to drive yourself through and to say, I am going to be the best, and I can beat the best. So, one should never be surprised, I think, that people who succeed in competitive situations or television have big egos.
Yes, that is true.
It's only humble authors like me who don't care.
Qualitatively, you're having far more success than we are. There's no doubt about that.
And would you also describe him as ruthless? Is there a ruthlessness there
No
in a
question
competitive
at
situation?
all. No question, but then I think most poker players are.
Right.
See, don't forget, one of the things that always strikes me about poker is if you run out of money, like if I'm playing at the Vic, and on a table of 10, and I run out of money, you stand up and you leave. And no one really says goodbye. I mean, no one. A minute later, you ask people who was sitting in that chair, they probably won't remember, because someone else is there.
Yeah.
And it is, I mean, at the end of the day, you are there to win and to take the money of the other players and whatever. And it is a ruthless business.
That's definitely true, and it's one of the downsides of just playing poker in your life, I think, that you don't get any kind of, there's no fulfillment from it in that sense, because it's a completely selfish activity, basically. Did you find that the players had that problem in their lives, or is it just that they're individuals that don't need to get, if you like, an altruistic feeling from what they do? Because obviously when they sit down and do what they do for a living, they're trying to take other people's money.
Yes, but they if you like, they live right outside of society. They don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
They don't work the hours anyone else works. They're not accountable to anyone. And so to a degree they live in the world. But and yes, they're ruthless and whatever, but you must never forget this, that a lot of the time they're losing. Most of the time they're losing, and sometimes they're losing bad. And as I say in the book, one of the reasons I couldn't be one of them is that I just know that there are nights when they go back to a hotel somewhere alone, with no money, having blown it completely, no one to sympathise with them. And I think there must be what I call long, dark nights of the soul, when they wonder what the hell they're doing and why. But the other thing is they bounce back the next day. And I've seen them go on sometimes. Funnily enough, they all deny it. When I would say to them, you must go back to your hotel and feel just, oh, no, I'm philosophical or whatever. But in fact, I know, I've seen occasionally players go back, and I know that they're just absolutely down. Next day, back in again, and there's this extraordinary resilience, that they come back again. I think you're talking to Roy Brindley at some stage. Well, Roy tells a story in the book of when he came second in the World Heads Up. And I mean, you'd think he'd be thrilled, you know, second best, but no, he was distraught.
Yeah.
He went back to his room and cried, and he was all for throwing the money out the window and to hell with it because he wanted to win. And so, you know, it's, yes, they're ruthless, but at the same time, they go through, it's a tough life. It is a hard life. I personally couldn't do it. And they go completely broke. And I described one or two of them who are really sick gamblers, and they have moments of triumph that none of you or I will never experience. But what it must be like to win a gold bracelet event, and they bring all that money and they put it on the table, huge piles of $100 bills, right? And then 2 days later you've got nothing. And you've only got yourself to blame.
That's careless, isn't it?
What self-recrimination goes on inside them?
Are there any classic examples of that?
Well, the classic, of course, is the story I tell of Willie Tam, who is a wonderful man and a wonderful poker player, and I love him. And but Willie can't get out the door of the casino because he's got an obsession with dice, and so he'll win the money at the poker table, and he'll lose it on the horses, and so his whole life is ups and downs, moments of triumph, moments of despair. And when I rang him the other day, and I said, how are you and whatever, and how are things? He said, well, the poker's going all right, but the sports betting isn't. And he seems unable to say, in that case, I'll cut the sports betting out. You know? I mean, that thought doesn't even cross his mind. And when I drove him, actually, from Cardiff to Walsall, the weekend before last, and it was the first World Cup game, I think. And Willie was explaining to me in the car that he was going to give up sports betting. You know, that's what he was. The moment he got there and he realised his football match was on, he was reaching for the phone, you know, to place the bet. And I mean,
it's fun, isn't it?
Well, yeah, well, I find as long as you've been. Mickey Wernick's the same. When I talked to Mickey Wernick, he cheerfully explained to me how he just had to give up his house and move his family into a rented accommodation because he had just gone broke on horses. And he said to me, he said, I'm mad. He said, he says, I'm mad as hell.
There's the evidence.
And what sort of sums are we talking about here? Sums of money?
No,
what sort of
talking about huge sums? You're talking about hundreds of thousands. You know, I mean, Willie won $180,000 in Las Vegas in the World Series last year, and I saw in Barcelona about 2 weeks later, and he was broke. And you see, if Willie was here, what he would say to you,
isn't it?
Yeah, but you see, if Willie was here, what he would say to you is, yeah, but you know, I've got a lovely home, and I've put my son's become a great success, and I put him through university, and I've had an exciting life, and I don't care. You know, that's what he would.
Sure, absolutely. It's not for us to judge it. No,
he doesn't boast about it. He'll say, "I wish I wasn't like this." But the great thing about Willie is that he's comfortable with himself. You know.
I think that's fine. The thing that I've always worried about, and I've actually worried about this since we first started watching the great poker players, and I specifically used to worry about TJ, but I worry about, then I found out it was more widespread than that, and I worry about all of them now, is when they get old. Because at some stage, the poker skills will slip. It's just inevitable, and I just am not convinced these guys have pension funds.
Well, it's a really good question, and it's one I asked a lot of them, and they don't. And
that's it.
Yeah. But the thing is, I mean, I asked like Jeff Duval, who's a great cash game player. I asked Willie. I asked a lot of them, do you have a pension? You know, have you put money away? And of course, the answer is they haven't. And in fact, when you press them about that and say, well, you know, what's going to happen? I mean, at some point, your legs aren't going to carry you to the card room. Your eyes are going to start going. You're going to lose. You know, and they get very uncomfortable and uneasy. And I remember Jeff Duval. We were having dinner, and I was putting this question to him, and he suddenly stopped and he said, "Oh my God," he said, "you're scared the death out of me now." But it's a genuine question, and there is no answer to this.
I suppose if you've always been able to make money doing something, you'll assume that you always can, but unfortunately it's probably not going to be the case, is it?
It's just in their nature. They live for the day, they live for the hand. You know, there's an extraordinary sort of dichotomy. Paul Jackson said to me about poker players, he said, you go into a shop and you'll see a pair of jeans and you'll think, £7 for a pair of jeans? I'm not going to pay that, that's outrageous. And then 10 minutes later you'll be in a casino betting £300 on one card.
Oh, I felt that.
And it's a different...
It does that to you, doesn't it?
Or the other thing is, the alternative is you'll put money into a pot, exactly that, and you'll go, I can't believe I've just put that much money onto the turn of a card. And absolutely, as you say, I won't buy myself a new jacket tonight. And yet I've put it on this ridiculously pointless thing.
Well, it isn't pointless if you win the hand.
No, absolutely. I've got. Well, first of all, should we just tell people what we're doing tonight as a competition?
Let's tell people what we're doing tonight.
We tell them what we're doing tonight. Folks, we're really privileged tonight. We've got Des Wilson talking to us for the first hour of the show, the first part, about his new and highly critically acclaimed book, Swimming with the Devilfish. And you lucky people, we've got a competition tonight for 3 signed books, signed by Des.
It looks like there's 4 in shop, but one of those is Caspar's.
Well, one of these I'm keeping.
Because he's nicking it.
In exchange for the best 3 stories that you've heard about great players. So whether it was Johnny Moss taking the wedding ring off his wife's finger while sitting at the table, or Stewie Younger being found dead in his hotel room, broke just 14, 15 months after winning the World Series.
What a beautiful story
They're all
was.
fantastic stories, yeah. Or anything from this and other books, then do get them in. We want your favourite stories.
Yeah. And while we've got Des here, if you've got a question you want to ask him as well, that
Absolutely.
would also be cool. poker@pokernightlive.co.uk is how you do it.
Changing gear a bit.
Change the gear,
from
Caspar.
the Devilfish to a player who's always fascinated me, actually. I know almost nothing about her, and you talk about her in the book.
A lady.
A lady, yes. Here's Dave at one end of the spectrum, and here at the other end of the spectrum is Lucy Rocash. Talk to me about her. What's she like?
Well, Lucy is someone who does not like to be. She doesn't like to be challenged. So she used to work in a garage, and
As a mechanic?
she had a relationship, in fact, with the guy who ran the garage, and the two of them, had a life together, running this business and whatever for many years. And then it broke up, and Lucy was on her own, and some friends persuaded her to go to a casino one night. And she
They've got a lot to answer for, those friends,
well,
haven't they?
yeah. She liked the look of poker. At first, she didn't have a clue what she was doing. And she actually did all her money. And she had to get a second mortgage. And, she did all her money. And but she was determined. She was not going to be beaten. I mean, Lucy is a very, very determined woman. She's not going to be beaten at this. So she went back, and she was running out of money again. And she was, I think it was Northampton. I think it was a casino in Northampton. And they were having a tournament. And the guy who was running it came up to Lucy and said, look, there's a special prize for the woman who lasts the longest, So I really think you should play in this, Lucy. So she played in it, and she succeeded in being the woman who lasted longest, but she went on and won the whole thing. And from then on, there was no stopping her. She's very small. She's like a little walking time bomb in a way. She lives in Stoke-on-Trent in a little house in the university quarter there. She's a wonderful cook, I can tell you that. If ever she offers to cook you roast duck, you go there as fast as you can.
I bet she cooks better than devilfish. I'll have a
but she's having a tough time at present.
Is she?
She's not getting the cards for about a year now.
I saw her play. The 2 things I know about her is that I saw her play late night poker. I think it was either the last series of late night poker or the penultimate one where she reached the final. And she got down to 3rd place and suffered a horrible outdraw to finish 3rd, having dominated the tournament. In fact, I think she had 2 outdraws. She was very unlucky. But the thing that came across was just her aggressiveness and her competitiveness, and the fear that she struck into, more experienced male players. Very impressive. And that tallies with the only other thing I know about Lucy, which is in Barry Greenstein's book, in that he names her as one of his top 5 or 6 players that he respects. He doesn't use the word fears, but that he respects in the world of poker.
Well, she
Which is
became
extraordinary for someone playing in the game
the European Player of the Year, and but what you just described, the aggression, is the key. And she said to me, I said to her, "How do you, what's your thing? If one was to describe your game, how would you do it?" And she said, "If you take me on, you've got to be prepared to go all the way. You've got to understand that if it's head to head with me, all your chips are going to be in." And it is that, and how many players can actually, stand that kind of sort of pressure and challenge?
Doyle Brunson in female form, isn't it?
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Hendon Mob. What did you make of them?
Well, first of all, really very much genuinely friends. I spent quite a lot of time with them.
They seem like really nice guys.
They are. They're all nice guys. They really are. And they're all genuine friends. And they operate as a group really well together. But they're very different people.
They are.
If you take each of them in turn. Now, Joe, in my view, is the business brain, the one who's driving it.
Right.
Like, when I went out there, they'd set up for me to talk to each of them individually. Joe was quite clearly running the show. But lovely man, and I noticed something the other day, which may sound strange, but I was down in Cardiff where they were making a television series, and in the hotel bar in the evening, I was having a drink with Liam Flood, who we were going to have dinner together. And this was about 8 o'clock, I suppose. And Joe and his wife, he got married in Las Vegas last year, were sitting on 2 stools at the bar, talking to each other. And it struck me at the time that it was like a guy talking to a girlfriend or someone he was trying to win rather than a husband and wife.
Right.
Anyway, we went and had dinner. We came back. Donica O'Day joined us. We're still sitting there. The 2 of them are still sitting at the bar, having this conversation. You know, and it must have by then been 2.5 hours. And I just thought, my God, you know, how many men actually can you think of, or you've seen sitting talking to their wife in that kind of way?
None.
I was really impressed by it. And but Joe's he's the businessman. Ram is the crazy gambler. I mean, Ram is absolutely probably the most wild gambler of any poker player.
Really?
But he will they'll all admit it, and the mob will say that one day he'll have 100,000 in his pocket, the next day he'll be borrowing and whatever. But he's always on top, man. Nothing phases him. You know, he's a brilliant player. I think he's the best player of the Hendon mob. He's the one that I think most British players will say could possibly, you know, get right to the top. His only problem is that he tends to lack patience a bit, and you know, to win something like the World Series, you know, you really have to have incredible sort of patience. But he's a brilliant player. And the other thing that struck me about Ram, when I talked to him, was that despite the gambling and you know, all the glamour around him, he's actually a very cool, common sense sort of character.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, Barney and Ross are a great couple. Barney, they were the sons of a sort of left-wing couple. Their father worked in the local authority and that sort of thing, and they were brought up in a sort of a fairly social conscience, and they both got quite a social. Barney's actually, in my view, he's the link between the professional world and the amateur world. Everyone likes Barney, comes across as an everyday guy. He's got a social conscience, he cares about things, and he's a very, very good talker about the game. Ross is the only one of them for whom poker is not the big thing, because he's got his acting and everything else. So Ross is slightly at a distance compared with the others. You tend to see Ross around less. But they're a great bunch, they really are.
Excellent.
We've got a viewer question
Fantastic.
for you. It's from Dirty Papa. Now, people email him with their internet names. He's not dirty, though he may be a father. He says, Dear Des, I really enjoyed all your stories tonight. Have you noticed a correlation between people's social background and all their nationalities and their playing style?
Well, the first thing I would say is that when I looked at the list of people that I travelled with and interviewed, certain things struck me. One was how many of them came from a background of fathers being bookmakers or a gambling background of some sort.
So they've had it in their lives.
Really a very high proportion. The second is that most of them are not well educated. A lot of them have left school 15 or 16. And yet, extraordinarily enough, a lot of them have an amazing mathematical brain. And of course, when you think about it, in poker, that's working out odds and all that.
Because Devilfish does, doesn't he? Yeah. I mean, he was best. Yes. He has a great talent for mathematics.
They have an Action Jack and these people with great mathematical brains. But I'd have to say that most of them come from a working class background. A lot of them come from a gambling background, or from fathers who were bookmakers and whatever. And no, I can't say that I noticed, you know, how their background affected their style.
What about the nationality thing? Like, obviously, we constantly hear about the Swedes. They're very aggressive, etc., etc. Is there that perception among the top British players that they all play in the same way, or? I
think the British players are more loners. The Swedes tend to hunt in packs.
Right.
I mean, when I was at Barcelona, as people get knocked out of the tournaments, they move over to the cash games, right? And there's quite a lot of competition for a seat in the cash game because there's so many people there. So often there'll be a bunch of 6 Swedes who come together to Barcelona. They've taken a flat or a house together. They talk poker all night. They play poker all night, and only one of them gets chips onto the table. So the rest of them stand around, pour all their money in, and criticise his games throughout the whole thing. And but I would say that the Swedes are the great enthusiasm, and this is their thing, you know. But it's not like the old British gamblers, and the British gamblers tend to be more old style loners. And you couldn't call them enthusiasts, you know. I mean, I can't think of many that you'd say he's an enthusiast. Like I'm an enthusiast, right? On the whole, but the Swedes are, you know, the younger ones particularly are. This is their thing, you know.
It's like us. I mean, we don't watch this show.
Well, I'm not surprised. Having been on it, I'm not surprised.
See, Des, now you know.
There's always something better on, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's an excellent question from Dirty Pepper, I think. I've got another similar but two-part question. Okay, part number one is, of these great players that you write about in the book, okay, is it your hunch that some of them are actually long-term losers, even though they're celebrities? Are some of them making a loss? And part number two is, can you delineate any specific characteristics that you think does distinguish the winners or the big winners from the break-evens and the losers?
Well, there's no question that some of them are losers, but sometimes it's not because of the poker.
Sure.
It's their league. You
Okay,
know, the
all right, so
horses or
just in the
whatever.
poker. I mean, just in the poker.
But there are some. I mean, I suppose, and one can talk about him openly because he's written brilliantly about it. Simon Trump was a very good example of someone who was doing quite well and won the second series of Late Night Poker, and then had an absolutely shocking run for a long time.
Well, he had the extremes, didn't he? Because his run before that was unbelievable. Like, he won, you know, first place so many times for a year.
But he lost basically. He had to get rid of his gold Rolex and replace it with a tin one or whatever, and so on and so on. But yes, I mean, there are some that are broke. I've seen them borrowing, and if you go to the World Series and you're there every day, you'll see everyone arrives full of ambition and full of hope, and with their bankrolls. And very often, after 2 or 3 weeks, you see them going up and talking to other players, and you know that they're saying, can you lend me some money and whatever. So yes, there are some that go broke. Well, what is it about the ones that win? Well, I think probably, first of all, they're not losing their money in other ways.
Okay.
Right? They are pretty dedicated poker players. Secondly, a lot of them are making their money actually in cash games. You see, if you go to a tournament these days, the chances of winning it are so slight. I mean, take the World Series this year. They're anticipating 7,000-8,000 players in the main event. You know, well, your chance of getting through and winning that is so slight. So, but you only have to win one. You know, so you can be a tournament player and you only have to win one in 3 years. You know, provided you look after your money and only play in tournaments, you can live 3 years on that. But on the whole, if you're not winning in tournaments, you've got to be winning in the cash games. And you can never be quite sure, but in the cash games, that's where patience and discipline. These guys, Jeff Duval is a very interesting character. Jeff Duval, I think he's something like 56. He's a loner, a bit of a loner. Was a great gambler, but is now plays mainly poker. But he keeps records. He told me, I said, do you keep records of everything? You know, and he thinks in terms, and others like Stuart Nash is another very good example. Done reasonably well in tournaments, but at the end of the day, you see him at the VEC almost every day. And these are people who, this is their living. This is, they have to, so they know what they've gone there for. They've gone there, and therefore they tend to play pretty tight, you know, and they maximise their good hands. And you know, this is I think they'll sometimes sit there for a long time, but they know when they're going to win a hand. And you know, it's amazing how the pile of chips is always there in front of them. Someone like me will go and I play with them on that table, and I've won on that table, but I've also lost on that table. And you can never know how high or low my pile of chips is going to be. But you look at them, there's always a reasonable pile of chips there. You know, they don't tend to.
It's fascinating,
lose.
isn't it? We see all the TV tournaments and poker's become very flash and celebrity driven, and you know, the excitement of all ins and this kind of thing. The people that make money in poker, it's still grinding it out. And it always will be as we call it. It's still always making those small profit plays and protecting your investment.
But if you're making your life out of it, now Bambos is someone fascinates me. I can't even pronounce his name, but he appears a lot on television. And Bambos plays at the Vic. He's there every day. And Bambos said to me, people call themselves professional poker players. What is a professional poker player? He said, to me, it's someone who keeps his wife and his children and who meets his responsibilities and in every way fulfills his responsibilities as a family person and as a citizen from the money he's making. Then you're a professional. You see, you're not a professional if you're losing money and buying money and in and out and up and down and whatever. And I think the real pros, I think if you go to the Vic, you can sometimes see Willie Tan, Stuart Nash, Jeff Duval, Bambos, all there, sometimes all on the same table. And they're all hoping that someone like me will come along, and you can always see the eyes light up. Yes,
welcome.
Make room for another.
It's when someone makes room.
It's when they start actually licking their lips. So you're in real trouble.
I mean, Neil Baird beat chatting. I got an email from him today sending me another kind review about my book, and he said, we're missing you at the Vic. He said, and I thought, yes, I bet you are.
Guys, the book is Swimming with the Devilfish. There it is, and this is the author, Des Wilson. I know many of you actually have already read it. We've had a couple of emails mentioning it before.
We have. We had TK. TK was speaking very highly of it.
Right, yeah.
Tony Kendall.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
It's been universally acclaimed.
It.
It's got fantastic notices. Do get yourselves hold of a copy. If you don't want to buy one, you can win one tonight on Poker Night Live. We need you to email in your favourite story about a great player. Your favourite story, or maybe the favourite hand you've seen them play, a play they've made, could be anything, but about a great player. Get that into us and we will judge the top 3 and they'll receive signed copies of Swimming the Devilfish. Couldn't be easy to do that, you just need to get in touch. You've also got a few minutes left of Des and you can ask him your questions too. poker@pokernightlive.co.uk is how you do that. Now Des, for many of our viewers, being a professional poker player is a bit of a dream, actually. Though,
Sort of give me my question.
Was it your question?
Yeah,
do you want to ask alternate words?
No, you do it.
No. Being a professional poker player is a bit of a dream, and it does look glamorous from the outside in that they all love playing poker. If they could do it for a living, it's the old John Fox book: sleep till noon, get up, play poker, and give the finger to the man. We've heard quite a lot of almost cautionary tales from you. Do you think it basically is one big cautionary tale, or do you think the dream does exist and that people can quit their jobs and go and win money at poker?
Well, I would say it's a cautionary tale for 2 reasons. First of all, it's not a life, in my view.
Right.
I mean, do you really want to spend your whole life playing cards and in that kind of world? I mean, I love it.
Speaking as someone who did it for 2.5 years, I can say no, and that was why I made a decision not to. Do you know what I mean? It was exactly that. And it was the loneliness of going home at nights and going, I can't take this. My whole life has become beholden to this random number factor. Sorry.
I mean, I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. But I know I couldn't. There were other things in life. I mean, I think it is something that can take over your life and you're not aware of what you're missing out on, all the other things in life. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing is it's a hard life because what you see on television is the glamorous end of it. But it's a hard life, and the professional player who lives by it is travelling alone a lot of the time, very often coming back having lost. And by the way, the cost of it is colossal. This is another thing. If you decide to go on the professional circuit, you have to get there. Let's say you're going to Barcelona. You have to get to Barcelona. You have to stay in a hotel. You have to eat. You have to buy into the tournaments. And this is very large money. And very small numbers of people are winning. So that actually, it's a very, very expensive business. And Dave Colclough said to me the other day he would have done far better to stay at home and play on the internet. Now, he happens to enjoy going out and playing in the tournaments and whatever.
Well, I think this must be the kind of the human angle to it, in that somewhere these guys must just be the enjoyment of playing live poker against the best players that are out there. Because if it was just about money, they would all be home on the internet. I mean, it really doesn't make much sense for all of them to go trekking around Europe, playing against the best people they can find, when they could stay at home, but not only just stay at home, play against people that are vastly inferior to them. So they must have a kind of love of it
Oh, without doubt.
Quite a deep level.
Without a doubt. And I mean, you're absolutely right. Some of them have the kind of extrovert personality, they want to be out there. But I think a very good example is Action Jack, Paul Jackson.
Yeah.
One of the top internet players in the world.
Finished second at Monte Carlo, right?
Yeah. Now, you see, Paul's a very good example because Paul was Ladbrokes' biggest winner last year, top internet player, but he started going out, and as you say, he came second in the Monte Carlo. And I said to him, what made you decide to go out? And he said, well, you know, networking, meeting other players, talking. One of the things they love is talking about the game. He said, meeting other players, talking about the game, seeing what goes on, the camaraderie. And he said, you know, I'm going to wonderful cities, and the fact that they don't see the cities because they sleep in the day and play at night. But I mean, they do. In fact, the best place to go is Barcelona because, you know, you've got the beach and the sea right beside the casino, and you actually get a bit of sun there. And they sort of come blinking out into the sunlight. My God, I thought the world was permanently black.
Yeah, I remember that feeling.
Great. Anything else, Mr. Barry?
Anything else from me?
Yeah, well, I nicked your question.
Well, I guess who sticks in your mind the most from working on this book, Des? Who's the person who you remember?
Well, Andrew Black, who came sixth in the World Series last year, and who's this amazing Buddhist.
Right.
Oh no, he's fascinating. Yeah. We've got 4 minutes left. Let's talk about Andrew Black because he does fascinate.
Well, Andrew is unbelievable because when I interviewed him, he talked at length about this Buddhism and everything, and I was just sitting there thinking, hang on a moment, you're a poker player. I mean, how can you be talking about all this Buddhism and all the rest of it, and then you go out and you ruthlessly try and take people's money? And he said to me, first of all, the Buddhism made him a much better poker player because it taught him patience and all sorts of psychological things and whatever. But I think he genuinely believes that there are things wrong with poker and that maybe he can play some sort of part in encouraging players to behave in the right way and whatever. I mean, I think he's mixed up, to be honest. I do think he's mixed up.
Fascinating contradiction,
but
isn't it?
Despite that, I think he's a good man. I really do think he's a good man. John Gale fascinated me because John Gale is someone who is very competitive. He wants to win, but he hates to see anyone lose. So when he won the World Poker Tour event, it was absolutely hilarious because as he knocked each one out in turn, he was up out of the table, hugging them on the back, tears in his eyes. and I said, as I say in the book,
give me my chips back then.
If you're going to lose, John Gale is definitely the guy to lose to, and he'd make you feel so good. You know?
Brilliant.
So he's quite a character.
And he's that he was a poker player, went into a monastery for however many years it was, and through that process of enlightenment, decided to be a poker player.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah, that's interesting. So listen,
bizarre.
we're about to hopefully go and interview Roy the Boy Brindley. Any sort of final thoughts on him in the last couple of minutes?
Well, I like Roy. Roy lives life on the edge. He's actually about 4 years ago. He was on the streets, literally on the streets. And,
wow.
You know, and I got a lot of time for Roy, and I think he's also one of those players like Ram Vaswani and Paul Jackson. I would choose those three and say if a British player is suddenly going to shoot off and win the World Series, it wouldn't surprise me if it was one of those three.
Right, interesting. I mean, I saw a fascinating interview between Jessie May and Roy Brindley about that being on the streets. Is that true? He was literally
on the
living
streets.
rough.
He was on the streets, literally living out of like cold tins of baked beans. He was on the streets.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
I mean, it's amazing that, you know, that people's lives can change so much as a result of poker.
Totally.
One final question: how long did it take to write, Des?
It took 9 months to research and 3 months to write.
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah.
And you're glad you did it?
Oh, I'm very proud of all the things I've done. I think it's the best.
Right.
I do think people will like it because it's the first book that really looks at British professional poker and describes the personalities and whatever. And well, it's certainly been well received. I'm very gratified and very grateful to have the chance to talk to you two.
How lucky you are. Well, we're the lucky ones. It's been a great pleasure to meet you. We are running out of time, unfortunately. Swimming with the Devilish is the book, guys. Go and grab a copy. As we've said, you have the chance to win one tonight, and that'll be running all night, so we'll keep updating you on that. You're doing plenty of media at the moment, I'd imagine, Des?
A bit.
None of it will be as much
None of
fun
it
as this, will it? It's been great to meet you. I already know you. I was saying, mind you. We've got loads more coming up in the show, guys. After the break, we're going to be doing Beat the Presenter. One of us will have an arm wrestle for that in a minute. And we're going to run the competition all night long. We will still have the usual mix of online games, the multi-table, sit and go, and the cash games. For now, Des, it's been a great pleasure. We'll see you again. We'll keep promoting the book for you. We're going to go and talk to one of the subjects of Des's book, Roy the Boy Brindley, in the phone, and get the emails coming in, the competition entries coming in, poker@pokerlive.co.uk. Time for our phone-in guest, and I'm delighted to announce that tonight. It is one of Britain's finest poker pros. We've had him before, and he's always been good value. So look forward to talking again to Roy the Boy Brindley. Are you with us, Roy?
Hi guys, I am. I'm on a dodgy mobile, but it's good to talk to you.
It's nice to talk to you too. If you run out of batteries, text in your answers or something. That still wouldn't work, would it?
It's poker 84222.
That's it.
Yeah.
Roy, you're at the Poker Million at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We're filming it this week. We filmed 2 days last week and all of this week. It'll be 12 heats in total, plus a celebrity heat, and we're about halfway through now.
Okay, and tell for those that haven't seen the Poker Million before, is it the same structure as last year?
Yeah, it is. It's that sort of game show poker format which Barry Hearn and Matchroom Sport are behind and believe in so well, which means 6 players and a single table knockout shootout type of format. There'll be 2 semi-finals this year. They'll be live in the back end of November and then a live final in December. Some big names have been in. Can't divulge the results, but we've had a lot of fun.
Now, presumably you're not going to be able to tell us any results, is that right?
Well, it wouldn't be right, and it would ruin it for some people. Some people will be watching and will want to keep it a bit of a shock and a surprise.
Okay,
we've
so
had some
tell us
great
them.
poker, I can say that. We've had some unbelievable hands. In one situation, we did see 4 of a kind flopped against a full house, and
Wow.
surprise, surprise, all the money went in.
And Roy, do you think that is a fast structure? Do you think the best man will win that structure, or do you think there's quite a high variance in something like that?
Historically, you know, the hard and fast truth of it is that the best players rarely win that sort of format. Players that have got a good bit of card sense and understanding of the time of day and appreciate you can't sit there and wait for monstrous hands. You're actually playing against the clock, and you're playing your chip stack in relation to the average chips and the number of chips in play and the like. They're going to do better in the long run, but essentially the form book's not that strong. But it does make for great TV.
Roy, I've got a question, getting sort of full technical and pokery for a moment here, but it's an interesting point I want to ask you about. Do you think that fast tournaments, whether it's turbo structures for our friends who play online, the viewers, or something like that, do you think they actually reduce a good player's edge? In other words, because there's so much more luck, or do you think it just increases variance? In other words, just longer to hit the medium turn. What are your personal opinions on that?
You know, you read all these poker books and it tell you how to play a big hand and you know, how to play ace-king and bits and pieces. You know, throw all that out the window. It's absolute nonsense. You've got to keep an eye on your chip stack and your chip stack in relation to the average chips in play and the size of the blinds. And that is your strategy, and that counts double in this kind of format. I have noticed, and it's quite clear to see, the players that sit back and avoid confrontations for the first couple of levels when the blinds are low and then wait for a big hand and then get busy, they seem to be doing best, and probably that's the best sort of strategy to have for these things.
And Roy, you're playing against amateurs, in quotes, or there are amateurs playing with the pros, that's right, yeah? Have you seen, either this year or any other years, any players that you don't know or faces you haven't seen before that have actually struck you as being good players? Or does it follow that the pros are always playing better than the guests?
I think you can certainly, you know, if you didn't know what you was watching, I think you could certainly say, you know, if it was played on the internet and you were watching without, you know, the camera showing the players' faces, I think you'd still be able to see that this guy can play a bit, that he's got some sort of form and some sort of strategy, that, you know, he is, in inverted commas, a professional player. But it is amazing. Often we've seen some, you know, fantastic poker talent go into a studio, some guy I've never heard of before, invariably from Malmo or Linkoping or somewhere like that, and you think, well, this guy's got some game. He's got a bit of card sense, and he's got some great timing, and it does show you there are some fantastic poker players out there that people don't know. And I always maintain, you know, the best poker players haven't got an ego. They're not out there chasing TV time. They don't want to be in magazines. They want to make money. And a lot of those people are hiding behind the anonymity of the internet. Anonymity?
We know what you're getting at, mate, don't worry.
Thank you.
I've got one final question on that, actually, Roy, and that is, we had a debate a long time ago here on Poker Night Live that it's possible that some of the best players in the world just don't have a bankroll and they're sitting splashing around in tiny games. Do you think that's possible, or do you think you only become a good player by playing in the big games?
Oh, that's so true. It's unbelievable. I mean, if you look at probably 10 of the top 20 American names, they're broke, or they've been broke at some time or other, or they're bankrolled, or they're put into tournaments. I obviously can't mention any names for legal reasons, but listen to the stories and the gossip, and in these situations, they're all true. Some of these names I don't repeat, but they're good value. There's a certain English player who was European Player of the Year not so long ago. He's invariably broke, but he's the best value player in the world to put into a tournament.
Really sorry, mate. We have to cut you off there. I'm really sorry, but we're going to get back to you very soon. That's live TV for you. Speak again in about an hour.
Just having a little read, if that's all right. This is Swimming with the Devilfish. It's a belter, halfway through so far. Guys, we're giving this away, like as a prize, and it's not just one of those ones where you have to ring in and say, is it A, cat, B, herring, or C, the real answer. You have to do a little bit of thinking. We'd like your best story.
Cat.
It is cat, yeah. Well done. We'd like your best story about a great poker player. It could be anyone. Caspar, me, Dr. Tom. Probably better to make it about one of the really great ones. It could be an American. You probably get extra points if it's a British guy, because the book's about the British poker scene. But any story you like. Caspar said the one about Johnny Moss putting off his wife's wedding ring. They just got wedded, and putting it in the pot. There are lots more. I won't tell any now because that's for you guys. But do get them coming in, and the best ones at the end of the night will win a signed copy of Swimming in the Devilfish, which is a belting poker book about the British poker scene. We are now open to questions from the floor about anything else you'd like to talk about tonight. Remember, guys, it's your show. Whatever you email in about, that's what we'll discuss here on air. And it's really easy to get in touch. You can text us, poker, and a question or anecdote to 84222. Or, if you prefer, why not email poker@pokerlightlive.co.uk, poker@pokerlightlive.co.uk. If you didn't know that by now, just putting that there. Safe. Caspar's playing online.
My poker face there.
Was that your poker face? Amazing, isn't he? Caspar's playing online and beat the presenter, and as usual, or for those of you that haven't seen the show before, we will then show that game, we'll show all the cards face up, and we'll be able to see Caspar's play, good, bad, brilliant, whatever, and get his views on what he was doing at the time.
So they're all making me laugh. They made me laugh, and I smirked a little bit, and they all thought that was me smiling at the hand. They're all trying to make me laugh now. I won't laugh.
Don't try and make Caspar laugh.
Well, it's better, not funny.
Try and make him cry. That's the point of Beat the Presenter, isn't it? Beat the presenter. We're going to go to a game.
Hi, Addy.
Oh, dear.
What? I'm doing a shout-out.
Well, I don't think that's...
Oh, you don't know.
There's a set for the Phantom.
What? What's that table? That's mental.
It's got little chairs.
That's mental. There's no one sitting in them.
Well, there is, Caspar, but they're in the virtual universe.
Betway.
They're actually in their homes. Some of them may be in their pants. That's permissible online. I just let you watch this game. I think it speaks for itself. I'm going to talk to you as well. This is our cash game, 25-cent, 50-cent cash game. A level that I know a few of you out there play at. And if you don't, here's a chance to get a look at one. The players can put down $50 on the table at any one time. It's no-limit poker, the most exciting form of the game, meaning that the players can bet any amount of their chips in front of them at any one time. If TXS Trev B wanted to bet all of his chips right now on his Jack 10 nothing, he could put that $27 in. And of course it's a cash game, so if they go broke, they can go and get more cash. Reminding you all to gamble responsibly. And if you haven't
Isn't that an oxymoron?
That's just what they say in America.
Okay. It was the funniest moment ever on Poker Night Live for me last night. Michelle's playing Beat the Presenter. She's looking at the screen and she just says really absent-mindedly, "Oh, I've got a ban in." Yep. Actually gave away her hand.
That's brilliant. Bless her. She win with it?
She played well, actually. Did she bubble, I think? I think she bubbled.
She bubbled.
No, actually, she did have a bit of a nightmare, but I think she's become a really good player, actually, Michelle.
Okay.
Well, you know.
Whatever.
I think she has.
Nobody's got anything in this hand, so if somebody wants to bet, they could win it.
She makes some cracking re-raises on the flop. No, it's me and Johan again. I've just realised Johan's to my right.
Johan and I.
He was right.
Was he your bet noir?
He was. We had a classic hand.
Simple and classic. Cat's own Nash just picked up a pair of aces. He must know they're good. And he gets to bet them in excited fashion and then see everyone fold. Now, one of the things that I've noticed about this level of game, and occasionally you get a player that proves you wrong, but I would say that this level of game, and I don't know if you want to comment on this, Caspar, up to you.
Probably not, mate.
No.
Play a game of poker.
Right, well, you're out of the hand, I mean. Is not very creative.
Oh, always studying.
Oh, yeah?
Always taking in information.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Part of it, isn't it?
For instance, at the moment, Enigma is deciding whether to bet. And I've taken that in.
And you haven't missed that, have
No.
you? You haven't missed that at all. And you probably know by now whether he has bet or not.
A big shout out to all the guys and girls who played in the Hounds Only MTT from Addy 1970.
Is this the way of it now?
Shout outs?
Yeah.
They're all right, I think.
I think they're lame. You're watching for the first time and you hear a shout out to some bloke you've never heard of who's talking to you in a game that they can't experience. What's that all about? 3 queens, horrible situation for the Phantom. I wonder if he can get away from this. Or at what stage he can get away from it. 2960, he's got the queens and he's got the flush draw and he's just trying to figure out how to get the most money he can out of the Phantom. I think the Phantom might re-raise here, I don't know. Don't know much about his play, so I don't know how solid he is. Let's find out. If I was him, I'd just be looking to play this as cheaply as possible now. Yeah, I think that's the right move. And 2960's won it a different way. I guess the Phantom should check and call here, depending on quite how big the bet on the end is. Well, he's bet into 2960, which I think is a more expensive way of doing things. He already knows 2960's got a hand. He's told him that by check raising. He can't be completely certain whether his hand's good or not. And now he's put himself on the horns of a dilemma. That happened very fast. I can actually tell if he called or not. I presume he did. Apologies, guys, that happened incredibly quickly.
A systemic anomaly.
Yes. And 2960 gets the aces to follow up that success. So he's hot right now. Hope you enjoyed our chat with Des Wilson. Insight into the British poker scene, which we don't really see huge amounts of because the American personalities tend to dominate TV
Bloody
coverage.
Yanks.
Over here.
Double Top says, why don't you put yourself up for Beat the Presenter?
Because you got on there and started playing. What does he want from me? And can he email in, please? I mean, that is the authorised way to contact the show. poker@pokernightlivec.co.uk. Can't make it much more simple.
So I want some Chinese because I'm a bit hungry and I haven't eaten today.
Sure.
And they didn't order during the break. And the producer, who's clearly not a poker player, is asking me to interrupt this $50 sit and go, which is not easy, and just write my Chinese order down. And
It's up to you, isn't it, mate? You
Well,
either
I've got-
want Chinese or you don't. What's he supposed to do? Read your mind and then take your order from there? Pretty difficult.
Snooze, you lose, the producer's saying in my ear.
I think that's the truth of
Does
the
he know the
matter.
definition of the word talent?
Well, he never gets to see it, so
No,
how would he?
I understand that. He's got to use his imagination.
I'll take a plain chow mein.
Buffy Be Good says you should know that Cass likes anything Oriental.
Get more witticisms through an unauthorised approach channel to the show. Fine.
Mate, it's most interactive show on British television.
Yes, that's why we have the email. I mean, they're clearly online. Doesn't
Snail
take much,
mail,
does
I call it.
Doesn't take much. They're online already.
We've got a chat box. It's like MSN, but with poker.
It's like unauthorised communication. Pair of fours for Ild. And he's flopped a set. It's nice for him. Don't think he's going to get paid too much unless he can get Morrison to bluff at this pot. And he can't. Decided to bet out. Which I don't think is the worst play in the world. I mean, obviously, you've got the option to slow play there, but the other player's probably going to expect you to make a continuation bet anyway, heads up. So there's always the problem that you can tip him off if you then check. And if he's got something, he's going to play with you. If he hasn't a lot of the time. So there's two ways to play that situation. He'll chose to bet out. Unfortunately for him, Morrison didn't have anything. I'm Nick Wealthall, and Caspar Berry's here too, and this is Poker Night Live. We're here with you till 2, guys. Plenty of time to get your emails in. I know you've all come down from the exciting liquid football that England played tonight. You've probably all had time to watch it back and see your favourite bits.
Eat my goals!
That's right, Caspar. Eat your goals indeed. So why not drop us a line? It's poker@pokernightlive.co.uk, and you can ask us all the usual questions about this game, no matter what your level, no matter how many times you've watched the show. Particularly if you're a first-time viewer, it'd be lovely to hear from you. But you can also enter our competition, which is to win a signed copy of Swimming with the Devilfish.
Balrog says, "Eat my goals?" ? And it's a variation.
Please stop this.
It's a variation on my new catchphrase, which is "Eat my variants,"
Right.
for which you will be paying royalties.
We'll look forward to enjoying that later. Latinator's making me look stupider than I usually do. Oh, he's got his set. I've said that one of the things about this game, 25%, 50%, is you don't see much creativity. And he just made a very creative raise.
Latin always made you look stupider, didn't it?
It really did. Canis est in viam, or something. Nil desperandum illegitimi. That's it, that's all I remember. The 8s are good for Latinator. I think he was being creative there with that raise. He may have even thought he had the best hand. Not quite sure. Certainly was an interesting raise to make. Came good for him because he caught the 8. But by and large, I'd say this level of cash game, from what I've seen, people play in quite a straightforward manner. That doesn't mean to say they don't make mistakes, or that they don't occasionally bluff. But when people check, it usually means weakness. When people raise, it usually means strength. The vast majority of the time, I think, at this level of game, from what I've seen. So I think there is an opportunity to play a little bit looser if you wanted to in this game.
That's from the top.
Just come from the middle there. Well, this is a creative move. I'm sure this game's going to be full of them now. Thanks to me. A button raise. Just trying to pick up the dead money there. Got a big hand here. Jacks. Ace King twice. On
I
the
hate
board.
Johan, you know. And I really hate it.
The Jacks can call here. Well, this is a very difficult situation for Jacks. Had this earlier today myself in a cash game. When you've been re-raised before the flop, but you've flopped the overpair. incredibly difficult to know where you are. I can't believe TXS has checked there. Maybe he's going to try and check raise, but on this occasion, it's the right play because Latinator's got ace-king, but in general, it's very, very difficult to know where you are with this hand. You definitely need to define it somewhere or other. This is quite a good way to do it, I think. I haven't thought about it for 8 seconds.
And your mother, Johan. I'm abusing my opponents, not just in the chat box, but actually live on TV.
Yeah. All worked out for the jacks.
I want to do the presenter every night, and just me and you. I think we should have a heads up. What about heads up, me and Johan?
Yeah, do whatever you like. We're not putting it on telly, but do what you like. Hunk of junk for everybody. Jack 10 for Quinn, little raise. His little raise might actually be good enough to take this because nobody has anything. So we're saying Johan owns you. Are you his dad? Is he your daddy?
You can't even ask the question.
I can't even ask the question. I can write it down.
Let's write it down.
Daddy Johan Caspar is. Are you playing a $50?
Yeah.
It doesn't quite apply tonight, but somebody said the other night when Be the Presenter's a $5, it is without doubt the hardest $5 sit and go on the planet.
Mm. Yeah, definitely.
Because of the people that sit down. Kings to the Phantom. And the Hutch may play this to try and flop a set. He's thinking about it. And he does, and he hasn't. That should be the end of it, unless he wants to try something creative, which everyone's doing today. Of course they are. It's an interesting check by the Phantom. I'm not sure it's the best play because it might make the Hutch bet.
I fancy a chicken and sweet corn soup.
Oh, you found the time, have you?
Oh, that's boring now.
Ace Jack for 29.60. And he'll have a little limp. Got some competition entries coming through. Thank you, guys. We're asking for your best favourite story about a poker personality, a top poker pro, and the ones we like the best, or the emails about them we like the best, to put it more clearly. We'll take away a signed copy of Swimming with the Devilfish, the hottest new poker book in town, it says here.
Do they do dumplings?
I mean, that's what the menu's for, isn't it? Check under the dumpling section.
Well, there isn't one, so...
Right.
What number?
9s for TXS Trev. And it's a big raise, and Quinn's going to try and hit a hand with a bit of an action hand. And he's bent to the 9s, which gives him a decision. He just calls. I think if you're going to play, a raise is slightly better there for TXSF Trev because it defines the hand.
Can I just say,
Yeah.
A Thai tom yum chicken soup.
I'm not actually ordering it, so...
Please. And some grilled meat dumplings, number 17.
Can't you write it down?
Bracket 6. Well, they've got it now. It's on videotape. You can just rewind it.
I'd like a plain chow mein with soy sauce, please.
Oh, we've started something now.
Well, I wasn't gonna, but I can't stand the thought of it coming in here and me not having any.
So, tom yum soup and a grilled meat dumpling, bracket 6, please. Tom yum soup is number,
takes one down.
number 1, 2, 3. And now I really do have a tournament to play in, so can you all...
Yeah. Soy sauce. Plain chow mein soy sauce.
There are various Caspar fancying a Chinese jokes in the chat box.
Hilarious.
Make me laugh.
Good. This is Poker Night Live. Not a cross wire with a Chinese takeaway. And I'm Nick. Caspar's playing a Beat the Presenter at the moment. We'll be seeing his game at the top of the hour or somewhere around about there. At the moment we're watching a cash game, 25 cent, 50 cent. And we're inviting your emails as ever. poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. Send us in your emails. Have you, like me, spent the majority of the last 2 weeks playing online poker and watching the football simultaneously, and that's it? Are you rarely getting out your pants? Nice flop for Morrison with the ace-queen. I've been having an almost freakish run of not hitting the flop with ace-queen, which I don't mind. It's one of those things, fascinating, but it is starting to reach statistically bizarre proportions. And the Hutch decides to call. He likes these little pairs, and he's taken them a little bit too far on occasion. That's quite a nice check by Morrison. Could have induced a bet. And he's going to bet at the end. Unfortunately, he's not going to get any action. But a nice hand for him. There we go, a little taste of some cash. We have got a multi-table tournament as well tonight, free roll, which we'll visit from time to time, and we'll show as much of the final table as we can. Got to squeeze that in. Got to squeeze in Mr. Berry's tournament. How are you doing? Is this one of those critical times? It actually is. I've got an email from Fishing for Chips. Good evening, Fishing for Chips. His favourite player story is TJ Cloutier playing pot limit hold'em in a local casino. TJ had a good hand and hit the nuts on the turn, so he bet 2,000 from his 5,000 left. One of his opponents had a habit of putting his head down after he called a bet, paying no interest to what was going on the table. As TJ was making his bet, the dealer grabbed his cards and threw them in the muck. His opponents continued sitting with his head down, of course, didn't see it and called. So TJ just put his hands on the table as if he was protecting his cards. I imagine something like that. Maybe that. Then came the river. TJ bet his last 3,000. His opponent thought for a second and folded. Everyone else noticing what happened apart from him, and TJ won the pot. So TJ runs a bluff even without any cards. That's pretty cool in my book. I've heard that one. It's one of your favourites, isn't it, Caspar? It is a good story. And an example of the creativity of the top players. Finding a way to win, even though they didn't have the cards. Cool. Thanks for that, Fishing for Chips. Oliver Harris says, I love the pure cinema of Scotty to win saying, you call this and it's all over, baby. That was my impression of Scotty to win. Sorry. What he actually said was, you call this and it's all over, baby. Before he won the final hand of the 98 World Series, runner-up Kevin McBride claimed that Scotty's brash, bluffy confidence made him call Scotty's better hand, proving that theatre can win you the World Series. Absolutely, he was already dominating him, but it was a great moment. You're absolutely right, a great TV moment. Interestingly, if Kevin had paid more attention to Scotty's demeanour and less attention to what he'd actually said, he would have realised how strong he was, because Scotty was very, very relaxed. But that's good. A couple of good entries from Oliver and Fishing for Chips. Do keep them coming in, guys. We're going to be running this all night, so you've got plenty of time to think of your best, or even do some research and find one out. And the prize is well worth winning. We've got a cracking book. Swimming with a Devilfish by Des Wilson, who was in earlier. Hope you caught him. Fascinating guy who's got a wealth of stories that will last him for dinner parties for the rest of his life, I think, having spent time with some of the top British pros on the poker scene. And that's what the book's about. If you haven't read it already, I'd recommend it. It's a cracker, I'm told. I haven't read it myself. I'm gonna. But we've got 3 copies to give away for those of you that get in the best stories about top pros. Any sort of named player. If it's a British player, you get extra marks because that's what the book's about. Poker at pokernightlive.co.uk is how you get them into us. Couldn't be simpler. There's the text, 84222. And there was the email as well. And there's the camera I'm supposed to look into. Caspar's playing Be the Presenter. We'll be looking at that in a little bit. Snappit sent us an email. Thanks, Snappit. Good evening to you. I think the best story is when Jack Strauss won the 1982 World Series of Poker. He thought he'd moved all in and thought he'd been knocked out. Getting up to leave, he found he had 1 chip left, which he hadn't put in. I think the dealer found it. I'm not quite sure.
It was under his napkin.
Under his napkin, wasn't it? 500 chip. He used that and went on to win. His story didn't end there, as he died from a heart attack in 1988 in the middle of a game. And his story did end there, to be fair, didn't it? But yeah, extraordinary story, and gave rise to the phrase "a chip in a chair," as in you're still in it if you've got a chip in a chair, because tournament poker was quite new back in '82, which is a maximum we can all learn from. You're never out till you're out. Yeah, good one, Snappit. Thank you for that. Do you keep them coming in? I think we're going to go and check in on our multi-table tournament and see how that's going. It's our free roll. Let's have a look. There we go. It's our $300 TV free roll. So exactly what it says on the tin. There's $300 up for grabs. For nothing. It's free money. They say there's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, there is if you win some money in this and then use it on a lunch. But don't spend more than you originally, because that's what I do. You think, I've won $20, I'll go and get a lunch. But then you think, well, 20 of it's free, so I might as well get like a steak and some wine and that. And then you spend 50, and so it's not a free lunch. And then you get quad sevens. Nice, quad sevens in a free roll, even nicer. $300 is the prize up for grabs, distributed among the top 40. So if you come 40th, you get $1.35. That doesn't buy you lunch anywhere, disappointingly. But if you get first, you get $75 for nothing, which can't be bad. 1,500 starting chips for these players, and the blinds are going up every 12 minutes. And I think you can probably see one of the characteristics of a free roll. There's a couple of small stacks there, almost certainly players that haven't shown up. They've got their free roll seat by playing on the site, but they haven't shown up to play, so they've just been blinded away, I would suspect. Somebody that has shown up is Guffy80. He's made a hatful of chips, bless him. Maybe he doesn't win this one. Linner wins this one. I hope he isn't a Linner. I went to school in a town called Kings Lynn, and people from there are called Linners. And they're almost all awful. If any watching today, I extend a basket of hate to you and don't want to hear from you ever again. We've got 150 players left, so we've lost just over half. Actually, more than that. Getting up to 2/3 of the field. Blinds at 75, 150, so still quite early on. And that's not unusual for a free roll. Usually a bit of action and carnage at the start, before we sort out the people who seriously want to win it from the people that just turned up because it was free to have a laugh. I'm almost always in category B. Can't play free rolls to save my life. When it comes down to it, I don't care enough. And Jack Ace has outrun Junipery. I don't think we'll get any action though. So early on, Again, some small stacks could well be blinded off people that didn't turn up. Not quite sure, because they're not as small. Hard to say. But do be aware of that. If you do play in a free roll of a decent size, have a scroll over the people on your table, because some of them will be disconnected, some of them won't have shown up, and that's obviously dead money, all part of it. And obviously, don't be like me. If you're going to play in a free roll, then play properly. It is an opportunity to make money, free money. Danielson's the only one with a hand. Daniel's son. Paint the fence. Do you remember? Like Karate Kid, yeah. One of those ones we all enjoyed quite a long time ago, to be fair. Thanks for the competition entries, guys. They're coming in thick and fast now after an initial sluggish start. I know, it's the football, wasn't it? Easy competition to enter. Difficult to win, though, because there are a lot of stories out there that people already know. If you know one that nobody else knows, you're definitely in pole position. Asking you to give us a story or an anecdote or any tidbit about a great named player. Living or dead, American or English. Caspar's back.
Yep.
The old team. Now we've ordered Chinese, I'm hungry. Wasn't hungry before.
Can't wait for dumplings.
Kicker problems here for Hilaire, who might well figure that out now that his bet's been called. No, he hasn't figured it out yet. And if you make a bet on a flop with top pair and no kicker and you do get called, then alarm bells should be ringing most of the time. Because really, you have very little of a hand. If they've got any kind of made hand, you're in trouble. If they've got a draw, obviously you could still be winning, but it's going to become very difficult to use plan, especially in a situation like that where you don't have position. So be aware. In fact, whenever you encounter resistance on the flop, you've got to be careful. Let's check out the chip leader in this tournament. Give you a taste of another table in the free roll. Reminding you that this is the multi-table tournament Betway free roll. $300 up for grabs for nothing. These players haven't paid a penny to be here. And Daniel's son has forgotten the cardinal rule Mr. Miyagi would have taught him of patience and discipline. And so we'll leave before Miyagi has a heart attack or does something unmentionable.
What is that?
With a
$300 TV. What is that?
That's the tournament.
Oh, right, okay. It's a free roll tournament?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's not a $300 entry tournament?
No.
That's a shame.
Oh, don't undermine the product, mate. This is what we've got.
I'm not. It's good.
Guffey's got all the chips, 31,000, which is an astronomical amount with the blind at 75 or 150. I imagine he could go off and write a quick sonnet and come back and still be in pretty good shape, depending on the length of the sonnet. They're always the same length because a sonnet is a certain structure. What I mean is the length of time it takes him to compose it. That's what I'm saying.
Nice card for Yogi. That's an even, for Funkster, and that's an even nicer card for Funkster. It's going to make him money.
Yeah, he still had the same hand, but Funkster did have a very nice outdraw there, didn't he? He picked up that 10.
He had a full house, mate.
I know. I was just saying Yogi still had the same hand. He still had a
oh, you're absolutely right. Yeah. I apologise. Yeah, that's an idiot. That was an idiot. I was an idiot.
That was an idiot. Did you see it? Well, Guffey doesn't need to hit cards with his chip stack, but he still is. He likes to check. He's got his eye on remaining chips, trying to get a bluff out of him, presumably.
So how many people are left in this tournament? Quite a few, I'd have thought.
We're down to 140 Cas from 430 entrants, so the usual early doors free roll, free for all.
Interesting. Saying last night, you know, that you get these tournaments with sort of 2,000 players in. 1,000 of them are gone in the first hour. Less. First 40 minutes.
Extraordinary.
1,000 players just falling by the wayside.
Extraordinary, isn't it? Overlay. And that's basically, if you're a decent player, that's dead money for you.
Absolutely. Any players here standing out for you? Playgirl's doing it for me, actually, as I asked the question. You?
You like a style of play, presumably?
Very much so.
Do get in touch, Playgirl, poker@pokernightlive.co.uk.
07980 924683.
You did start to go out your real number, didn't you?
Yeah.
Halfway through, aborted the mission.
Yeah. That was not a real number, by the way. Please don't anyone phone that number.
No, because it probably is a number, isn't it?
Well, I went to a
Let's face
stag do with a mate of mine at the
dear.
weekend who used to do something really, really funny when he was younger. He picked this name and address out of the phone book, right, this family in Sunderland, and he had him and all his friends, I never did it personally, but all his friends send the family what had to be a really pleasant and lovely holiday card.
Right.
For many years on holiday. So this family would receive all these cards every summer from people they didn't know. Telling them what a wonderful time they had, speaking to them as if they'd been lifelong friends.
That's very funny. Playgirl just mucked aces. I don't think she's at the table, I'm afraid, Cass, so she's probably not listening.
Well, the tournament is over, and I'm not happy.
Don't let cats out of bags. Is that because you're never pleased with anything, so like second, you'd be really unhappy, wouldn't you?
I just, I really wanted to enjoy that game, and I peed around for the first 20 minutes, not concentrating. And before I knew it, it's like getting cut off by the tide, actually. After everything I said yesterday to Michelle, poor old Michelle gave such a hard time for not wanting it enough. And what happens is you suddenly turn around and the sea level's gone up and you're cut off. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
With those rising volumes, I just suddenly turned around and just went, God, I've got no options left.
Well, we've learned something there, haven't we? Don't
Well, there's
cart about.
Yeah. I'm not sure it's going to be the best tournament for learning experiences, but there's certainly a general lesson to be learned there, which I'll try and draw out as we do it. And it'll be interesting seeing what Johan had. And also interesting seeing the hand where, after I specifically asked you not to come back into vision and ask me how I was doing, you did that very thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's my fault, is it?
It really threw me.
It's my fault.
It really threw me.
Aces for Yogi, aces for Carloa.
2 pairs. Takes it down.
Good enough.
What do you? I don't know if you've had a time to catch up on the forums or whether you saw last night's show. But what are your views on the psychology of poker, Nick, and the psychology of your winner? Do you have any strong views on it either way?
Well, it's what makes the difference. So yeah, I think I do have quite strong views on it, to be honest.
What are your strong views?
Views. I didn't see the show. I don't know exactly what the debate was.
Well, no,
and obviously, not many people will have seen both shows. So, what was the debate? It was what makes a winner?
Yeah, it wasn't really a debate. It was basically me in a big monologue, sounding off.
What a shock.
About what I believe, or how I believe the mind works. Not just my beliefs, of course. I mean, these aren't just idiosyncratic ramblings of a madman. That you're well familiar with the concept that we have a thermostat in our minds for the level of achievement and success and self-worth that we apply to ourselves, and that's largely in our subconscious mind, although conscious experiences can shape it, and that our subconsciouses will motivate our conscious minds to do whatever it takes to manifest that self-esteem, that image, that self-image that we have. So, for example, if we're having some bad experiences at the poker table, let's say, and we feel that we are not worthy and bad players, then that's the origins, the cause of what we call in common parlance tilt. We start to manifest those feelings of low self-esteem and go on tilt. Another very different aspect of it is that sometimes people start to exceed their internal thermostatic settings of their self-worth, and they'll start to accumulate lots of money and have a great time. And one person observed, when they're in that situation, everything's going fantastic. That's when they'll start to sabotage it. Well, of course, it's a similar sort of thing. Kicking in is you've exceeded you've overshot what you believe you're worth in this tournament or this day's poker or this week or whatever it is, and a part of you starts to sabotage that, and you start to make essentially bad decisions. Mark Bannon emailed in at one point, and I think he'd only picked up the dog ends of the conversation, and said that he thought that in poker, whilst he believed in subscribed to, let's say, the thermostat concept, that we have this self-image and vision, but that in poker it was different. And if he'd seen earlier on, he would have seen that I was saying that it works both ways. Your internal thermostat can be set partly by the events at a poker table, but partly by the events in your life. So you can, if you're doing very, very well, that can lead to a sense of high self-esteem. I'm a great person, I'm doing well in poker. And far from sabotaging your game, that may actually increase the self-image to which you aspire, and it may, as Mark said, sometimes precipitate much better play, and you play out of your skin. And sometimes when you get that bad run and you're dragged down, that can drag you down still further. But sometimes, and we just heard Des talking about it, when the devilfish was broke and he was beneath that thermostatic level of what he believed he should be achieving, and the sort of self-respect that he wants to have when he looks in the mirror, that's when he does his best.
Or is it that he needed to eat?
Well, absolutely. No, that's part and parcel of it.
Part and parcel of it.
That's absolutely part and parcel of it, in the sense of, why do we go out and do jobs, none of which we want to do? Because we need to eat, and because our self-image doesn't involve us living off the streets eating beans out of a can, as Des said about Roy the Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely needing to eat is a crucial part of it. It's not just about how you do in poker. It's not just about whether you're driving a Ferrari and going out with a model. It's everything in your life you'll do to manifest that self-image that you have. So anyway, Ken Snappit responded by really the only kind of dissent there's been on the forums was Ken's point, which he posted last night, which was that a throwaway comment that I made that people who smoke and don't give up smoking on some level want to smoke. And we talked a lot then about pleasure and pain, and how actually giving up smoking is the easiest thing in the world once you've accumulated so much pain associated with the process of smoking that it is greater than both the pleasure of smoking and the perceived resistance, the perceived pain of giving up smoking. And a lot of people have emailed in with stories of how they gave up smoking in a day when they had a kid and they didn't want to die before when their children were young, or when they were told that they were very ill.
I think my perspective would be that it's definitely a very important part of whether we win or lose poker, our confidence levels, our own self-image. There are very, very few good poker players who are not confident, both in themselves and also when they play, but also as people. They have a very ebullient view of themselves in general, although that may be masking some deeper emotions, but I think that's definitely true. I think the slight thing that can throw it off with poker is that you can be drunk, depressed, etc., and still flop 4 aces, and so it's possible that it doesn't completely tally all of the time. You can go on a lucky run whether you're feeling confident, unconfident, etc. I think overall, though, it does have a big bearing. I think particularly live it has a big bearing, because your aura and your image that you're projecting will affect whether people play against you and how they play against you.
That's very true. That live issue. But I mean, I'm gonna throw this out now. You know, what was Des Wilson just saying tonight? He was quoting players who had he was saying they were good players, but they had $180,000, and the next week they were broke. You can flop all the good aces. You can flop all the 4 aces you want. If you want to sabotage that, you can lose. There's not a single amount that you can win that you can't spend in a week. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's in a bookies or a poker table or whatever, if you're determined to, you can do it. So, so I agree with you. Any isolated incident, I'm not saying if I play this next hand, I'm going to play it well, or even if I play this next hand, I'm going to win as long as I've got a positive mindset, or this whole evening I'm going to be up as long as I've got a positive mindset. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying poker is just like life. Good things will happen to you and bad things will happen to you. But the way that you choose to respond to those things will be determined by how far above or below your internal thermostat that you are.
Right.
No, I mean, the notion that your mindset can affect your statistical outcomes is out there. It's put forward by some people, but that's not what I'm saying in this context.
I mean, I largely agree with you. I'm just trying to find areas to talk about around it. My only problem that I have with that analysis of the way that we think or the way that we should think is that if your life and everything from your poker results to your girlfriend to whatever is a manifestation of your self-worth, does that present a problem for people who have very low self-esteem or two potential problems. One for people who have very low self-esteem or are depressed or whatever, and another for people who life just isn't going very well. They're having bad breaks or that kind of thing. In either of those circumstances, there's a danger that if they receive that wisdom, they will think it will send them on to a further negative spiral because they'll think, oh, maybe this is all I'm worth then, because this is what I have.
Okay, well, look, let me.
And you can either deal with that in life terms or poker terms.
All right, I'm gonna. We've got 3.5 minutes, haven't we, till the end of the show? It's not really a point to say that I've suffered a nervous breakdown in my life, is it? But there, I've said it. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. In the next part, I'm going to answer that in more detail.
Well, let's save that, do a couple of emails, and we'll do that after the break.
Because I do have very strong views about that as someone who has experienced depression and someone who's experienced a nervous breakdown. And, my life hasn't been a bed of roses largely as a result of my own making.
Yeah.
So I can talk about that from first-hand experience in a way that, Nick, and this is absolutely key, in a way that is tremendously, I think, positive and life-affirming for people who feel that they're in that situation.
Good. Self-Help Night Live will be after the break.
Well, yeah, no, let's not about that.
We'll bring it back to poker.
No, but refer it to being a winner. That's what it's about. The whole point of last night's show, and we'll take on to this night's show, is that, this show is about winning at poker. That's what we're talking about, and therefore that's about winning. As Stu Unger said, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. It's about the winning mentality and everything. So it has generated a lot of feedback on the forums. That's all I'm responding to, folks. It wasn't something that we threw out there and everyone went, don't care.
They wouldn't do that. Crash Flux has entered the competition. His favourite story is about Doyle Brunson when he came home after a winning session to find his house being robbed. He thwarted them by feigning a heart attack in front of them, the ultimate bluff. And I believe it worked. You can call it the ultimate bluff. I think they just ran off with the money, didn't they? And they didn't. They never got the safe open because he did that. Basically, they panicked. So yeah, it's a very good story. It's told in detail in Super System, I think, but it is a very good story.
I don't remember that, but it's several years since I read Super System.
Yeah, it's in his life story bit.
I remember the stuff about him beating cancer.
Yeah. He's an extraordinary man all round. No two ways about it.
Yeah.
And they. On High Stakes Poker, which is this show I keep banging on about, he plays, and you see him play, and it's extraordinary, in fact. We've only got 9 seconds left, so we might have to bridge this one as well. But David wants to know, he's been playing online for a year. Hello, David, by the way. I think you're a new emailer. Welcome. Is there an obvious difference playing live? You're in the circle. It appears to me that live games are loose, players playing starting hand out position frequently. Is this true? Or have I just happened to play in loose passive games? Difference between live and online we get asked about a lot, don't we? Would you answer it?
They shouldn't be, should they?
No.
I mean, I think it depends on the makeup of the personnel of the casino you're playing in. If you're playing in the 2040 game in the Mirage, then no. If you're playing in the £20 buy-in on a Monday or Tuesday night in Newcastle, then it's mental. And some would argue not even about poker at that level. Certainly when playing the tournaments. Yeah, well, and it can be profitable. You know, if you've certainly if you've got the bankroll to engage in it. It's just hard to generalise. I don't think that generalisation per se is true. In fact, probably if anything, the opposite. I mean, probably the internet is a bit looser, but it just depends on.
It just depends.
Yeah, sorry.
Good luck when you play live. Guys, keep the emails coming, poker@pokernightllive.co.uk. You can, as usual, ask us anything, entertain us, ask us whatever's bothering you with this game. But also enter the competition, your favourite story of a great poker player. Now it's time for our phone-in. And we're back with Roy the Boy Brindley, if his mobile's still got batteries. Roy, you still there?
Just about.
Magic darts. Or cards. We were talking about people who don't perhaps have the bankroll but are capable of playing much better than the games they actually play in. And you were talking a bit about that. Did you get to say everything you wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're on the circuit, you know the kind of people that I'd be referring to. There's some, wicked poker players out there that have got habits, leakages, invariably, related to craps, blackjack, or a betting shop. And when these particular characters go broke, they're the best players you can possibly put in a tournament because they've got the card sense, they're hungry. And I've seen it over and over again. Players put into a comp, got a result, and they're actually only playing for 35 or 50% of themselves.
Right. Roy, just a question on that. I phrased the question there as, are there very good players without a bankroll? I know you're not going to mention any names here, but are there any players that you know, they're sort of household names, we know them, you know them, who maybe aren't all that good? Maybe they have hit a lucky streak and maybe they've got bankroll, maybe they've got some money from other areas of their life. Are there people who are genuinely, you think, very overrated?
It's the most overused phrase in poker, professional, that word. So many people like to describe themselves as a professional poker player. And they introduce themselves, shake hands and make out for all intents and purposes. They've got this wonderful life all through poker. And the bottom line is they've never won a tournament, they've never won an argument. They're an absolute car crash in a cash game, but they happen to have a business behind them. They've got a few quid in the bank, whatever, and they can sort of use that tag to impress.
Yeah. I saw an interview with you and Jessie May about a year ago, I think now, in which you were talking about your life. You have, made a living at poker for the last, 10 years, 15 years? What's your story in that sense?
More like 4, to be honest.
Okay.
And a few losing years in the middle of all that. But at the end of the day, I've been quite fortunate that, I was one of the first players to get a sponsorship deal, and I've had some nice wins, and life's been good the last couple of years, yeah. Right.
And again, just very briefly, you were very honest in that interview about your past. Did you get into poker through someone who was very interested in maths or very interested in sports, or as a gambler? What was your situation? What attracted you to the game in the first place?
Well, I played cards as a youngster, literally from year dot. I can remember the family around the table 6, 7 nights a week playing cards of some sort or the other, and that was the way it was for 10 or 15 years. But one by one the family died off and the game ended. But I think that's where the card sense and just the basic understanding of card sense it's everything. I think it's so an inherent card sense there. And when I saw Late Night Poker on TV, I thought that looks good. I saw a few documentaries, thought that looks brilliant. Saw Rounders, the film, and that was it. I had to have some of it.
Now, a lot of our viewers have had the same kind of experience, but they haven't gone pro, or they haven't had the big tournament. Many of them would like to. Would you encourage them to, or would you dissuade them from doing it?
Well, being a professional poker player, and I mean a true, genuine professional who makes a living out of poker, it's not as glamorous as it may first appear. Yeah, it's nice when you win a big tournament and you win $1 million, $500,000, 100,000, whatever. Yeah. But they're few and far between. I don't think I know anybody in Europe which you could put hand on heart and say during the last 5 years they've made a nice living playing tournament poker and tournament poker only.
Really, Roy?
Well,
that's a big statement.
Dave Colclough had a nice run there 2 or 3 years ago, won 2 big tournaments, but he's had a drought since. Willie Tan had a great year. He won a lot of tournaments. He's had a drought since. I can't think of anyone, maybe with the exception of Ram Vaswani, that could actually say hand on heart, they've made a nice living playing tournaments, and pretty much tournaments alone in the last 4 or 5 years.
Wow, that's very illuminating, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you put that down to, Roy?
Um,
Well, that was a dumb question. You've only got a few seconds left.
Yeah, in 20 seconds or less, what do you think makes the difference between a great player and a good player?
Being a professional poker player, making a living out of poker involves a lot of hours and grinding away in cash games. And although tournaments are great and they're glamorous, at the end of the day you can invest a lot of money before you win one, and it could be a long wait before you win your next.
Cool. Okay, well, there's a cautionary tale for all of those of you that want to play tournament poker on the poker circuit. If you disagree or agree with Roy, why not email your views in? It's a big statement, isn't it?
I think you disagree with Roy. You've got to respect Roy's opinion. He's there and doing it. So.
Totally, but they can tell us what they think.
Absolutely.
We're going to have more from Roy in a little bit. More poker after the break. We're going to be back with you very, very soon. Hello, sir. It's Poker Night Live, and this is the second half of tonight's show, and you're not going to believe this. It's actually better than the first half. And we had Des Wilson. You're right.
We on?
Have a little look at it.
It's very good.
What have you learned?
We've been playing backgammon. I'm winning about $5 grand off him.
Extract. Plenty more where that came from. There's loads of it. There's loads of pages.
300 odd. No
We're
wonder it took
giving
3
away.
months.
I can't believe there aren't more emails. I mean, there's some, but this
Actual prizes.
actual
We haven't done that
prizes.
for a year.
No, we haven't.
I don't know why.
Do you remember the goodie bags?
Yeah, I do.
These are actual real prizes, boys and girls, and you can win them. And all you have to do is email us with your favourite poker story about one of the great players. If it's a British player, extra points. poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. They're signed by the author, not by me and him.
But we will if you want. If you make a special request, put it at the bottom of your email. Special request, : can Caspar sign it?
Not Nick. My handwriting's awful for a start. Brace yourself.
Yes.
A bit of hand analysis to be done.
Okay.
I don't really do that anymore, but all right. We're going to talk about, life and everything, but we'll do this first. Jan Arger, or Age, one of the two. I apologise, I don't know which one it is. It says, hi, Nick and Cass. This is a cash game question. Promise it's not a bad beat story. Well, you're in then. And a player that sees a lot of flops makes the minimum raise and gets 4 callers. I've got aces in the small blind. Nice. I raise 3 times the minimum raise. So 6 times the big blind, he's made it. The big blind folds. Everybody else folds except for the man that made the initial raise and the cut-off. He's got aces against 2 opponents. He's first to speak, and the flop comes king, queen, 8. So not too bad, but not one you want to mess around with. He makes a pot-sized bet. Top marks, which is called by the player that likes to see a lot of flops and re-raised by the next player in the cut-off. This is only another $6 into a $40 pot to call for me. At this point I decide to fold my aces. Having been called on a re-raise, I see it quite likely as my opponent having kings or queens, or I feel one of them must have tripped up. Then a pot-sized bet on the flop and then an all-in. Surely they've got good hands. I fold my aces, what's revealed? One of the players has got jack 7, the other one's got ace 10. So one of them's got a kind of a straight draw and the other one's got a kind of a straight draw, basically. Pretty bad. Now, obviously, this has caused Jan a lot of heartaches. He wants to know if he did the right thing or not. I think it's multiply packed with challenges, this question, in a lot of ways. What do you think?
I think that you didn't do the right thing, but I don't think that by virtue of the cards that they turned over.
No, absolutely.
I think that the cards that they turned over was reasonably freakish, and so that's that. It's like, flopping aces. It's not going to happen very often, and there's not a lot that you can draw from it. What I think, though, is that you did the wrong thing because I think you were getting the correct odds in that situation. He says it's only another $6 into a $40 pot to call for me. I've just inferred, and I'm probably incorrect actually, that he's all in at that point, but he's not necessarily, is he?
No, one of the players, he doesn't say exactly how much money everybody's got left, because that would affect it. If it's $6 into $40 pot and that's going to be it, that's your liability for the hand, then you should definitely have made the call.
Yeah.
If the other player's got a decent amount of money and you've got a decent amount of money, it becomes a slightly different problem, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's 2 opponents, so it's a marginal decision, I think. I think there will be times when your hands are good and times when your hand's not good in that situation.
Yeah, so the question is, are you getting the correct pot odds at that point? And what's it going to mean for your effective odds as the hand plays out? The crucial thing is as the hand plays out. I think, actually, personally, that the correct way to play this, although it's increasing your exposure, is to re-raise, actually, and see what they do. Yeah?
See what the non-all-in player.
Yeah, because I think it's perfectly possible for someone to raise in that situation with ace-king.
Yeah.
Someone would raise with ace-king. And when I say perfectly possible, I don't mean I've decided that that's what's possible.
Yeah.
I mean that there are a basket of probabilities, or a basket of situations which are probable. The cards that they turned over are highly improbable, so we just discount it. But of the basket of situations that's probable, what are your pot odds like at that time? How will it play out in the future? And will a re-raise at that point extract the necessary information to allow you to continue? Because if they re-raise you, which they would do with trips, I think, then you can just forget about it.
Yeah.
And if they call, then at least you're in trouble. But by really putting them to that decision, you're saying, look, I think I've got the best hand. And if they call, then you can, assume that they've got two pairs and not necessarily ace-king. I think there are a lot of players that would fold their ace-king in that situation. It's tricky. The more I'm talking about it, the more I'm thinking it's more a marginal decision than I thought initially. But because we do sort of get these things thrown on us immediately in Poker Night Live and have to shoot from the hip. But that's because for some reason I inferred that $6 was an all-in call. If that $6 was an all-in call, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. You've got a call because A, your hand might be good, and you only need a $6 into $40 pot, so you only need about an 8 to 1, 7 to 1, 8 to 1 chance of it being good.
Yeah.
For you to make that call.
Sorry, that's what I was basing that inference was the basis of my initial answer.
No, I think other factors should be brought into play if possible as well. For example, one of the players you described as somebody that likes to see a lot of flops. Well, then the basket of hands that he could have is immediately bigger, isn't it, for example?
And of course, then the guy who raises him, if he knows that and knows this guy likes to see a lot of flops, would raise with,
lesser holdings.
Yeah, king 10. So
you must always, because you will get into these marginal situations, especially online, you must always bring as much information to the decision as you can. That would have to be the advice. It's not an easy one, it's an interesting one.
And so my conclusion, sorry, just to pull back, is that I still think that probably the fold was incorrect on the balance of probabilities, but that, it's only one side of the knife edge, given all the information.
Yeah. Good one, thank you, Jan.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Now we've got another email or two. We've got an emailer that we're basically going to do for entertainment's sake, because they've had a go at both of us. So, that's always fun, isn't it? Just to prove you don't have to put "love you guys, love the show" to get your email read out. P-Ring, thanks for these, I think. Had a go at both of us. I'll do you first, then me.
OK, mate.
Caspar.
Spelt wrongly. Sorry, that's so petty.
No, but you immediately, we're off, aren't we? Please don't keep putting Michelle down. You are an old pro in the nicest possible way, and Michelle is learning, so please help her. And all us ladies will be supportive of you and her. I really enjoy learning from you. Keep it up. So it's critical, but it's in a nice, it's in a nice basket.
I really can't lay into it because it's obviously she's saying nice things and she's saying nice things about the show. I just want to say there are two senses of the possible putting down Michelle. As a person, as a friend, and the whole sort of Michelle's intelligence jokes, that is because Michelle is become a very close friend of mine, and we have a lot of banter, and Michelle knows I don't mean any of it, and she gives as good as she gets. And I want to make that completely clear, because I love Michelle. And it's one of those things where it doesn't cause offence. If it caused any offence at all, I would stop it in an instant, okay? The second thing is, I gave Michelle a really hard time last night, but I gave her that hard time in a capacity as her poker coach. And Michelle said at the end of the show that she thought it was very, very useful. And a number of other players, Crespo, for example, who I really laid into, said that it was the 15 minutes that improved his game the most. Now I'm not trying to go, ooh, I'm not brilliant in that sense. I'm just going, that's my job, is to ask questions mainly, not say you did that wrong, aren't you stupid, but to ask questions for players to elicit their own learning from those situations. So I do, honestly, I reject this accusation that I put Michelle down. Unless you're misconstruing what is the banter of two really good friends when we're talking about Michelle's pronunciations.
But really don't like her, do you? No. P-Ring's email to me is, Nick, what's wrong with King's Lynn? Now, you see, I'm still young and naive. I've fallen foul of the fact that I am on TV, aren't I? So somebody is going to be
Somebody's
watching.
going to King's Lynn.
Yeah. Kes is a good school. I didn't go to Kes, so I missed out on that. I saw you at the station and wondered if it was you. Probably was. I have family that's still in that area. I actually come from Hunstanton. I think I'm incredibly lucky to live in West Norfolk. Why are you so bitter about the place? Well, I was bullied, if only that was a joke. If you have
You
a great...
talked funny, didn't you?
Yeah, I talked funny. Talked all posh. If you have a great experience of West Norfolk, then I'm very, very happy for you. Seriously, obviously, I'm very happy for you. Let's just say that you can have different life experiences, and where they happen will colour your view of that place. Is that fair enough? And if you see me at the station again, please come up and say hello.
I, for example,
I like meeting viewers.
had a Filipino girlfriend in Vegas, and I ruddy love it
Yeah,
as a place.
yeah. I just had a nice time playing poker and that, and I still love it. No. Thanks, P-Ring. We did enjoy the emails. We enjoyed the criticism. Thank you. And maybe I'll see you in West Norfolk and we can debate its merits.
No dual carriageway.
No, it's changed a little bit, but still not great, is it?
It's about 6 miles now.
Yeah. Don't start this because I'll get.
And I got a speeding
Don't
ticket
because
for
I'll
my
get
camera. It's like miles of fields. You know what it's like? It's just field. That's
Yeah.
all it is. Field and straight road going through the field.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, all right, I'm doing 60 miles an hour at midnight, and then suddenly there's this flash of light, which half blinds me, by the way. I actually steer off. If there'd been a car coming in the opposite direction, that would have precipitated me
Sorry, it
crashing
wasn't rush
into
hour.
it.
There won't be.
No, it's nothing. Midnight. I get a speeding ticket. Now I've got 13 points on my licence.
Still driving though.
Yeah.
You're above the law. You've had quite a nice experience of West Norfolk, haven't you? Every time you've come there, we've had fun.
Yes, that's true.
See, different experiences, different place, etc. And I went to Springwood, which was, you can probably understand now. So now we'll get someone from Springwood, great. Snowblind has emailed in and says, and this will get us back to the discussion we were having before the break, says, hi guys, I believe that both Cass and Ken Snappett both have really good points. However, that's not the point of this email, but we're going to use it to segue in a minute, Snowblind, if that's all right. I'd like to know if either of you know of any sites that play 5-0 or Irish poker, and what you think of these games. We're not going to recommend sites, unfortunately, Snowblind, we can't do that. Also, what's your favourite card game? I started learning both these games last week in a cash game in Newcastle and found them both fantastic. As for Cass saying the multi-table tournament in Newcastle is crazy, I can confirm without a doubt that it is. I've laid a few. I think you mean played a few. Unless you're just bragging randomly in the middle of your email. I played a few, never seen so many rebuys in the first hour of an MTT. Apparently there are other areas of the country which are like this. I haven't played in, I think Walsall is quite famous for it. But yeah, if you go to the right card club, you'll find amazing rebuy periods. Newcastle's definitely true example of that. However, the £20 freeze out in Newcastle is a lot more steady and does attract quite a few good players. Well, I've played a decent amount in Newcastle before Caspar tells you more about it, and the fascinating thing about it is the variety of standard of players. There are some really random guys who are just out for a good time and throw lots of chips in the pot. There are 2 or 3 of the better pros, our own James Browning, for example, in the country playing there. So, extraordinary variation. I haven't played 5-0 or Irish poker. I've never been one for quirky card games, to be honest, and my favourite card game is Texas Hold'em. Caspar.
Hearts. Yeah. We had a lot of fun with Hearts.
Yes, it was great.
In the good old days.
Mr. Bun the Baker.
Do you know that was 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Newcastle, as Nick said, it's the variation standard of players. There are literally some of the best players in Europe there. We've talked many times about Mr. Stephen Liu. Shout out to Stephen. And there are some players who play for fun, and there are some players with big bankrolls who sort of steamroller through by virtue of that. They're at the, they're doing well in the old leagues because they're throwing a lot of money at it. So, which brings the old question to mind: what's the purpose of poker? A lot of people are saying to win money, and of course it's not to win money, it's to make money. It's to maximise that differential between the wins and the losses. And a league in your average casino only records the tournaments that people have won. So it's easy to get to the top of the league. You just have to spend the most in rebuys, and statistics will dictate that at some point you'll be the big stack, and you'll win more tournaments than anyone else. But that doesn't mean to say that you're making more money than anyone else, or even that you're making money at all. In actual fact, you can be a seriously loss-making player and still be at the top of your casino's particular league table.
Yeah.
So
interesting fact.
Digression there.
Interesting true fact.
Now, can I just say one thing about this part of poker? We are obviously going to watch some poker here on Poker Night Live, and we are going to do all your emails and everything else. But we will be coming to Vision a little bit more than usual because there is a girl who's going to be watching tonight to see what I look like. So every now and again I'll say something like, let's have a look at us, or something, and we'll just cut back to us. And the girl is a friend of our Vision Mixer, so she's in on it. And just as she's watching it, it's me that you're looking at, not
This is the most unprofessional television programme.
That's my trademark. Well, it has become so recently,
yeah.
I've noticed, yeah.
I don't know what to...
Let's get to
I'm
the
going to
game.
try and do something similar with you that Devilfish is trying to do with Hull.
Yeah.
Just sort of slowly disassociate,
from.
just to preserve my brand.
But Sam will put us on the roster together every now and again, won't he?
Can't stop him. He's out of control, really. PokerNightLive.co.uk with a www in front is the email address. And not only can you ask us anything or share with the Poker Nation anything you like.
But you can also get to see what we look like. Leah. Sorry.
Yes. And if you want to upgrade, I'm available. Swimming with the Devilfish is the book. Des Wilson, the author, was with us earlier, giving us some great anecdotes about the time he spent with top professional poker players. He's written a ruddy book about it, and it's a good one, and it could be yours signed. eBay it or something, once you read it. Just read it really carefully so it doesn't look like it's been. If you tell us your favourite story featuring a top poker pro. Could be something that you know or that you've heard, as long as it's true, or one that you've read about, or whatever it is. Whatever you like, really, guys. poker@pokernightlive.co.uk. We need to get back to a game. Are we going to Caspar's game? We are.
Brilliant. That's a good enough reason to keep coming back into Vision if ever I heard one.
Well, especially if she's going to watch and see you lose. She'll immediately identify you.
Crap, I didn't even think about that.
She's going to anchor you with the losing.
Literally 5 months of steady winnings.
Yes.
And someone's been into my account, by the way. I had $350 into this morning, I only had 270. So I want to recount there.
I mean, I believe what Kevin Spacey's character in Swimming with Sharks said, interestingly, it all links. Women are attracted to one quality, success. Now, what message are we going to be sending out?
How do you ever get a girlfriend?
Should probably be in Vision quite a lot. So here we go. It's the 2,000 chip thingy.
Yep. Now, Johan there, the little tink.
On your right. Now, I was reading only today, as I browsed Super System, Mike Carroll's advice that money comes from your right in poker, and his passionate belief that you should sit to the left of people that you are more likely to make profit from. So you've not got a good seat draw there, have you? If that were true.
No, what? That's the better seat draw. You should sit to the left.
You sit to the left of weaker players because profit comes from the right.
Well, yeah, okay, fine. The counter-argument is that you want good players to your right, and certainly aggressive players like Johan, because you want to know what they do, because they're aggressive. And in fact, today is a very good case study of that. So I bet out there with the 7. He actually had me beaten with the jack, but he did check it on the flop.
Yeah.
And then I hit my 2 pairs, which is nice. And obviously he sees me.
Which is nice.
For the ace.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm violating the river principle there, Nick, would you say? Do you think I'm only going to get called if I'm beaten?
Well, I've got something to say about the river principle, quite frankly.
Okay. Can you say it
No,
now?
I haven't got anything to say about the river principle. That's a stupid thing to introduce. I'll cut to the chase in a way. Analysing my game recently, I've been taking the river principle too far, and I was tipped the wink on this.
You're not betting for value, are you?
Correct. Not doing enough betting for value. And it's a difficult chaffinch to balance, I think.
Balanced the chaffinch once.
It's not an easy thing to do.
The RSPB came round.
I mean, there you've got a clear betting for.
Angry.
There's nothing wrong with balancing a chaffinch. You can't. That's not cruel. Unless you're
No,
balancing
you're
it.
wrong.
Unless you're balancing it on a lit firework.
You're wrong. Anyway, it's not a show about birds.
It is. The whole point of you being on here is so that she can see you. Different birds. Yeah, and Doyle Brunson write about this in Super System and about how betting for value is the whole essence of making money at no limit hold'em. But of course, it's a continual balancing act, an act of good judgment as to when you should be betting for value and when you'll only get action when you're beaten. Not easy. One of the harder things to do, I think. One of the key things in maximising your winnings is knowing when you can bet for value and when you can't.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Much, much easier in limit, I think, because the downside's much less. I mean, out of the Chinese deal, I seem to have got a pot of soy sauce and a pot of sweet and sour. That's not much of a dinner, is it? I mean, I know I'm not well liked around here, but that's taking it to extremes.
Do you know why we don't work together so much anymore?
Yeah.
Greed.
Yeah.
Your greed.
My greed?
Yeah.
I just want too much. You've got my noodles, apparently.
All right, well, we're here to watch a poker game.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
This is new for
now,
you.
I fold 10-2 then. I think that's a perfect opportunity to come back into vision, because I reckon she's probably just tuning in round about now.
Seriously, we're not going to do the show around your quest for a date.
No, of course not.
Be a man, stay at home and self-abuse.
What do you think about that issue of... well, she's not going to watch very long if she just sees a big poker game in the middle of the screen, is she?
No, she isn't, and that will bring our viewers down by 1, whereas putting us in vision for an hour and discussing your love life will bring our viewers down by many thousands. So what we're doing is we're making a key decision for the show and dictating it around the latter.
Putting me in vision and discussing our love life is what won us Best Poker Show at the UK Gambling Awards.
Not according to some, including you.
That's what we've done for 2 years, 1 year. I've added a year.
Well, once you're over a year.
That's right,
if
you're
you
basically
round
into
up.
2 years.
Yes. PUFC boy has raised, and Caspar's going to re-raise and bully him off this hand with a kind of creative, flary... No, he's folded.
Now, is this the I Hate Johan hand? No, it's not. We've got another 10 hands for that, so that's plenty
I
of
don't
time.
think you should hate him because he raised you or something.
Why
that
not?
doesn't seem healthy.
Why not?
Well, you're talking about
Okay,
karma and the universe and positivity. That's hate.
You're right. I've made a fool of myself and others.
Place your bets. Was he stealing from you, or did he have a hand?
Well,
What's your
so I've
instinct?
already put my money on the situation. I've folded ace queen. So as far as I'm concerned, he had a good enough hand that I would have been incorrect to call. I'm not. We had an interesting situation 2 nights ago with Tom, where I made a decision based on gut feel and slight panic because we were coming into vision at that time. I really didn't want to, and then before we watched the show, I said I'm going to make a prediction. I don't think Johan had me beaten, and he did, actually. He played very well. It was a lovely hand. It was a great hand. I'm joking, by the way, about the hate, folks. And there's me. Oh, can I just point out, I pressed the wrong button here. Can I just say that?
Oh, yeah.
I actually pressed the button, and I thought, why has it cost me 40? The blinds haven't gone up. I've only played a few hands. I meant to just call. I just meant to do my just late position call.
Yeah.
Quite an interesting situation. So he checks. I've just raised before the flop. He checks. I bet out, thinking, well, I have raised now, so I may as well take advantage of that. And he check raises me, which, as bizarrely, he was ahead. I don't think that's the best check raise in the world, actually. I'm sorry, I know you take the pot, and it's either a very good play or a very bad play, but given that he's only got Queen King, and I've bet out in that situation, I'm not sure what that's based on.
I can only assume it's the kind of flop that he doesn't think has helped you, and so...
Okay, because it's not big cards.
Because it's not big cards, yeah. That's all I can think. But Ambience, we'd love to hear the
no,
truth.
Okay,
Poker
fine.
Night Live,
I don't want. I really, honestly don't want that to sound petty at all. It's just I'd like to know why he thought it was a continuation bet.
It doesn't sound petty, mate. It's just.
If someone's sitting at a live game,
questioning
you can say, "Oh, look, I looked at you and you didn't seem to have it." There's a little smaller continuation bet, and that takes it down. I don't understand what that was necessarily based on, but please, Ambience, don't think that I'm being petty about it.
I don't think anyone's going to see it as petty. It's just questioning the action and doing what we should do, which is analyse the play.
Okay.
Ambience, if you want to come back and tell us the thinking behind it, that would be great. It's poker@pokerlive.co.uk.
I mean, he's able to just say, well, look, yeah, I don't think you do a 2 times the big blind raise with tens, jacks, queens, kings, or aces, basically. And without tens, jacks, queens, kings, or aces, I can't really call. So perhaps I'm answering my own question. Live on air.
Could be that, although, you know, a lot of good players do make double the big blind raises with big pairs.
Can we come back into vision now?
It's not up to me, and it's definitely not up to you, given your predilection. I didn't mean predilection.
No.
How do I get food? I've got sources and nothing to...
break. There's a microwave upstairs. Seriously,
they won't notice.
Please, just try and maintain some sort of professional standard.
I'm living up to your standards.
Where are all the stories about poker players, folks? We are giving away free copies of Swimming with the Devilfish, one of the best new books about poker on the
I've got to be
market.
honest, we'll just have them away and give them to our friends if you don't respond. It's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Play the competition or...
So, what's happening at the moment in my mind? Well, nothing much. What I'm doing is I've been messing around, really. I've been typing the chat, but I've not been focused. And the fact of the matter is, here's what's absolutely key. I believe you win the tournament in these early stages.
Yeah, I know this is your passionate belief, and I couldn't agree with you more.
You know, and if you're messing around and talking to people, and actually, I was in the chat box a little less than usual, and I say this now, folks, please forgive me for doing that, but I want to win, you know, I want to win these things. And I think that the biggest mistake that people make is that they don't concentrate when there's the money to be made in these early stages, when you can take stuff down. Now, all right, I've called a few times in late positions, and nothing much has happened, but we're back in vision. It's me, by the way. It's not him, it's me. I think only just a very brief interlude is all that it takes.
For the other 117,659 viewers that aren't the girl that Caspar wants a date with, I apologise.
Should we do an email?
Apologise.
Let's do an email.
Are you want to do something related to the show?
Yeah. Just a brief email, not that one, that's too long.
We've got a couple of emails which are entries into our competition for
Naughty,
the best...
really, isn't it? Sorry.
It's not naughty.
No. I'm just the guest tonight, but a lot of the time I sit there, just like pointing out.
Now she's going to think you have a really tiny winky.
No, yeah.
Juiced has emailed in and says, great show, guys. And interestingly, 2 people have sent Jack Treetop Strauss stories, plus we've already had one, which is and he is, I mean, obviously we never got to meet him or see him because he died in the late 70s, but by all accounts, he is one of the great characters that this game's thrown up. Juiced says, I like the story about Jack Treetop Strauss and his...
Can you tell the Vision Mix to stop giggling in my ear, because it's...
Whatever. And his principal. Principal meant that he set up a certain day to pay back his loan, and he only paid it on that exact day. Jack apparently borrowed $5,000 from a guy, and this guy had come over to hassle him for money. He replied angrily, I still have 30 days to pay that back, stop bothering me. As the man went out the door, another guy...
Let me do it.
Another guy came up. The door was still open and Jack let him in. I'm down on my luck, the guy said. Could you loan me 10,000? Jack peeled the 10,000 out of his pocket and gave it to him. Cool. So he had far in excess. Apparently that was the kind of guy who was. This was the way he thought, quote, I'm broke one day and have a fortune the next and I don't give a damn. So exactly like...
I like that story.
Well, there's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good story.
That's Juiced. You're in the running, Juiced, for a prize.
We should get back to the game, though, because there's Johann's key hand with me is coming up. So as much fun as this is, let's do the table. There's a close-up. Don't, because Nick was going to get really angry. Really angry. He's actually sighing.
Pathetic.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. No, we can't get to the game.
Oh, well, we'll do
we're
another
going to have to look
email
at more of
then.
me. I really want to see the Johann hand.
Well, we'll see that.
Okay.
Are we going back to the game? We are.
Yeah.
Magic. The magic of TV and pushing a button. Johann's got ace queen. You don't have anything. I don't think it's this hand.
No, and it wasn't the last hand either, obviously, so I hope we haven't missed it. And we actually paused the game. We could have talked for ages. I say talked, I mean, you know, just sat here.
I've got a Jack Treetop Strauss story I like. It's when he's...
Sorry to interrupt you, buddy. I've got kings here, and I want your opinion on what I do.
Oh, God.
Because it's late position, and I quite fancy raising it up, right? Now, as I can see here now, no one has anything, so nothing's going to happen. The reason why I prefer raising with kings in that situation, even though I talk endlessly about calling with aces and kings in the early stages of a tournament, is because that does look like a steal. However, it's me, isn't it? And I talk about don't try and steal in the early stages of tournaments all the time. So should I use the fact that I talk about that all the time to just call with kings in that situation and make it look like one of my crazy late position calls?
I think you have to mix it up is the answer. I don't think you should do one or the other. I think you should mix it up.
Well, you've hedged your bets there, so...
Well, no, that's a course of action, isn't it? Mix it up. In general, I think it's better to raise because it looks like a steal.
Okay.
In general. Got quite a lot of emails now. I think they've finally understood that there is a real prize, and it's not one of those. It's not one of those ones where we pretend there's a prize.
You know, I mean, I know we're out of vision and all, but thank God. You got anyone watching tonight? Friends, family,
My mum always watches.
potential partners?
Well, almost everyone's a potential partner, as long as they're not related. That's no disrespect to the women in my family, they're hot. My favourite Jack Treetop Strauss story is a very short one, and it's when he was in court for tax evasion, and he was up for some crazy amount of money, like $200,000 in the 60s or something. And this guy was broke and was having to pay $5,000, and he said he didn't have it, and his family were going to move out, etc., etc. And it was the case before Jack Strauss's, and he was in the courtroom, and apparently he shouted at the judge to put it on his tab. I think it's brilliant. It's all right, Your Honour, just pop it on my 200,000, it's fine. He does sound like a brilliant man.
Yeah.
And just a level of passion and gamble that I can't associate with, but I do admire in a bizarre way. So Johan Haren's got the 8s, which are actually good. Ambience is moving some chips, isn't he? And Johan Haren's obviously picked up on that, because that's a great raise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Johan's a good player, we know that.
That is in the excellent level of raise. Got some stories I haven't heard before, which is good.
Good, well, that was the whole point of the exercise.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Well done, team. We thought you might let us down, but you haven't. Well played.
Okay, here it is.
So basically all we're going to watch is the power of position, isn't it?
Bugger.
So Johan raises. He could have almost anything. You think it's reasonably likely you've got the best hand? Very likely, actually. He's on the button.
Yeah, and I felt at the time, by the way, that my raise should have been bigger, if at all. I mean, my big situation was, I hate the small blind.
Really?
I hate the small blind for this reason. For me, that's a definite fold or raise situation. And I don't think the fold is out of the question ever, actually, because he only needs a pair of 4s and does that.
Yeah.
Now, in a way, it doesn't matter what Johan's got, right? In a way, if you saw that in isolation, an absence of what Johan had, what would you think? Because the interesting thing is, I reckon Johan did that thinking he had the best hand. In other words, I reckon Johan did that thinking that I thought...
Oh, definitely.
That
I think
thought,
that's not in question. I think he definitely thought he had the best hand.
Yeah.
I don't think he was trying to bully you or anything like that.
No.
There's probably a decent argument that if you want to make the re-steal there, you should move in fact, because you will only get called by, especially from Johan, premium hands,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And he's unlikely to
I know
have
my
one of
raise
those.
was too small. It's, yeah.
But and you know, having the luxury of being able to look at it out of context, this is a big hand, isn't it? Straight versus a set. PUFC's got the 10 of clubs. Oh, no, it's out there already. He's got the flush anyway. Unlucky for Mr. Perfect. That one played itself, I think. As you said when you opened up, the fold is an acceptable course of action. It is. There's a lot going on in that hand beyond the cards, because you both know each other well. So that's the main thing I think that's led Johan to think that it's a re-steal. If a random player did that against Johan, he'd think more about whether or not to come over the top.
I think it is because of our hand history the other night, certainly.
Yeah.
Interesting. Johan, what did you put me on? That's the key question. I'd love to know. Do you please text or email the show?
I've got too many emails now.
Well, let's start getting through some, shall we?
It's backfired, Cass.
Shall we?
Yeah. Kyle Stanley, who I haven't heard of. Have you had an email from him before?
No.
Fantastic. I love first-time emailers. The family grows. Good evening, PNL team. My story is about when Phil Hellmuth, at the beginning of last year's WSOP, I haven't heard this one, don't know if you have, Cass, good one, gets dealt ace-king, when the player to his left gets dealt pocket aces. The flop comes ace-4-4. Ah, no, I've seen this. You can actually go and watch this online. YouTube have got it. The flop comes ace-4-4, so Phil's got two pairs. When the person to his left has flopped a full house. Both check the flop, then Phil checks the turn, a queen comes down, his opponent bets, and takes the pot down as Phil makes a great read and lays his hand down and shows Phil his full house. Phil begins to stand up and shout at his wife, "Hey honey, I was supposed to go broke on that hand, but I can dodge bullets, baby." So a great play, made slightly naff.
So he folds his own full house?
No, he folded, he had ace-king on the flop of ace-4-4.
Right.
And he folded to the first bet.
Right.
Check on the flop. He didn't lose any chips.
Okay.
To trip aces.
Yeah.
And you're right, that is a great poker moment, and that is Phil Hellmuth's great strength by all accounts. His reads are fantastically good.
Yeah, and the emailer goes on to talk about the hand that I discussed at length with TK the other night that you showed me, which is also on, what's it called?
YouTube is just a site where you can view clips of videos, basically.
Well, don't be blasé about it. I mean, at the end of the day, sure there's lots of fun to be had.
Do them too many. It's a great site, I just don't want to do them too many favours until they've talked to my people. Mr. Perfect's gone. He was short-stacked from that set of tens, unfortunately, so we're down to 7. Yeah, sorry, mate, the hand.
Yeah, just, we talked about it. It's definitely worth going to YouTube and checking out, I don't know what you put in the search, but Phil Ivey and Paul Jackson. And our emailer here says that it's a bluff, but the interesting thing is, it's not a bluff, actually. What Phil Ivey does brilliantly is he knows that Paul Jackson has nothing. Phil Ivey has the best hand, doesn't he? Paul Jackson, I don't want to bore you with the details, but we talked about it at length the other night. But the amazing thing is not that Phil Ivey is bluffing, but that he knows his opponent is. But what's also great about the hand is that they both play brilliantly.
Keep the emails coming in, guys, even though we've got loads, and we may not get through them all now. We will obviously pick out the best ones, especially as our competition's running, to win a copy of Swimming with the Devilfish. Send us your favourite story featuring a top poker pro. We've had a variety from amusing anecdotes to actual poker hands. So anything goes, guys. If you think it'll entertain and illuminate our lives, then you've got a chance of winning a signed copy of Swimming with the Devilfish. Poker at pokernightlive.co.uk. We're watching Caspar's Beat the Presenter. Chug it along in the background. We'll dip into it for key hands.
For what it's worth.
Well, don't be down about it, mate. You know, you win some, you lose some.
I'm not worried about losing. This is the only Beat the Presenter that I've played on television that's really annoyed me. And I get annoyed sometimes by coming third. I get annoyed sometimes by busting out first. I seem to have disappeared, though. I mean,
well, it skipped, and I can't help feeling
I didn't play that badly.
I can't help feeling that the tournament skipped there because you want to be in vision again.
Easy come, easy go. Can I read an email from Zitty? No, you read your email, go on. It's not great television, this, I'll be honest with you.
Rob from Leamington Spa, one of my favourite places because it's a funny name. I've never been there, don't know what it's like. I'm not going to get in trouble like that again.
No.
I love West Norfolk. Ooh, love it.
Mistakes.
The best hand I saw was in the World Series. Phil Hellmuth got dealt ace-king. It's the same hand, there you go. Exactly the same hand. So we've got a joint submission, so that cancels each other out.
But neither of them are eligible, no?
Now neither of you can win, I'm afraid, because you've both sent in the same hand. It is a great clip, though, and it's why Phil Hellmuth is such a great tournament player, because he does avoid going broke in situations where other players would go broke. I still haven't got to the bottom of why he struggles in cash games. I think it's just because he plays a tournament style. He denies struggling in cash games, but the other top cash game players say he does. So I guess he just doesn't moderate his game enough for the cash games. And he also does Steam, of course. But undeniably, his reads are fantastic.
And the thing, of course, the difference is if you Steam in a tournament, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're out of the tournament.
Yeah.
Whereas if you Steam in a cash game...
Absolutely.
There goes your bankroll.
That noise gets made.
Again, that's the third time tonight, isn't it? I could be fired.
Part of it, apparently, that
I'll
noise.
certainly be summoned to see Sam Orams get the hairdryer. Email from Kitty Lad.
He doesn't
Hi
own
again.
one.
Hi again. He says, I mailed last week to ask advice on which games to play to start my money career. I listened and... ... I played some low-limit cash games. Did okay. Profited. I've played 6 times $5 sit and go. Won 3, second twice. That's fantastic. Tonight I entered my first no-limit 100-player tourney and won! Exclamation mark. $91. Thanks to you guys and Phil Hellmuth's excellent book, Play Poker Like the Pros. Enjoying it while it lasts, regards. Well, listen, Kitty Lad, the first thing to say is that's fantastic. The second thing to say is you're probably having a good run, and that's great. Enjoy it and still keep enjoying the game even when that good run finishes. And the third thing to say, I don't know about you, Nick, but genuinely, it's what makes this job pleasurable and why I continue doing it, is the thought that we actually might be helping people to play the game of poker. Because I would have killed for it in the early days. I had to piece it all together. There are good books and bad books. Interesting what you say about Phil Hellmuth's book, because I've never heard a good word about it outside of this email. Most people lambast it as just a sort of ego trip, which Phil Hellmuth tells anecdotes about the great hands that he's played in his life. But if it worked for you, that's brilliant. And, but that is honestly the great pleasure that I get from this.
Me too, yeah, absolutely. That and the cake.
Have you had some?
Yeah, do you not know about
Did
this?
she?
I've had a cake.
I've had 2 boxes.
Sent to me for my attention.
2 boxes of candy.
Yeah, it was a massive cake. It's enough for everyone. I was hoping it would start an avalanche of cakes, but it's just one cake
Just
is
a
all we've
one-off,
had.
yeah.
But there was some fudge as well, which was nice.
We can go back to the game.
Can I just say?
No, please.
I haven't read Phil Hellmuth's book, and I guess I should read all the books that are out there, even related to poker, to do this job. But so I will get to it. But if it does contain him talking about hands he's played, then that's valuable.
Listen, all I can say
I don't know
is...
if it contains bad advice as well, then it's dangerous, and that's what I've heard, which is it contains bad advice. But I just believe that everything that you read has some value in it.
You know, I'd love to believe that. However, I do think that there are a lot of books about poker, a lot of writing about poker, which is dangerous.
Right.
And I can only say that, sorry, I've made this point many, many times, but I can only say that in my poker education, and of course it goes on for a lifetime, but in the early stages of my poker education, I would read something in a book and I would think, oh, well, that must be the way to do it. And I would do it that way, and it'd be catastrophic, because I didn't understand what it was specifically about that situation that made it correct to do. Scherer is a very good example of that. I'm not saying that I didn't get things from Scherer's books, but Scherer's lost me a lot of money from not understanding his point about 9-7 suited being the holy nuts. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's an implied odds point. And he doesn't explain it very well at all, I don't think, although he makes some fascinating other points. And you know, the article that you sent me, the Nigaranu blog the other day, you like it because you've got a very thorough understanding of the ins and outs of the game. But if you put that article in front of someone with even slightly less knowledge, I think it's damaging.
Oh well, this is the great challenge of learning the game, isn't it? Because you want to furnish yourself with as much information as possible, but filtering that information is very difficult until you have a certain level of knowledge. But how do you get that knowledge? It is difficult, that.
Another way in which poker resembles life, folks. It is one of the biggest decisions you have to make in life is who you listen to.
Yeah.
Because you'll get as many different opinions as people you ask.
Absolutely amazing that they've chosen to listen to us, given that.
I have no idea why.
Better show them something.
Big decision that I had to make in the early stages of my career was, I won't say who actually, but a very famous TV producer and writer sort of said he would mentor me, take me on his career. And I didn't want to be mentored by him. Do you know what I mean? But that was a massive decision to make.
Yeah,
to turn that down. But you have to, we've said many times, I've said many times, I have no shares in printing presses. I've never said you should read books. What I've said is you need to stand on the shoulders of giants. You need to access other people's knowledge. If we can help in some small way, that's brilliant. But you need buddies, you need poker mentors, you need to read articles, you need to watch TV, you need to listen to commentators, you need to stand around casinos and talk to people, and then as Nick says, it's about filtering out the good stuff.
Ironically, I have
filtering out the bad
quite a big share in a medium-sized printing company.
That is ironic, actually.
Isn't it? Let's look at a game, shall we? Let's look at a game featuring you. I think we've adjusted it to somewhere approximately close to where I do apologise, guys, for the technical hick-hock.
Can I just say, if the girl's still watching, it's not ER, it's not Caspar, it's Caspar. Which is,
She's not going to write to you, mate.
It's just more class.
She's not going to write, "Dear Caspar, I've seen you on the telly."
Well, if she does, it's Caspar.
Right.
I don't think she's going to write to me either.
Well, now she's just going to think you're a pedant.
Yep. I've come out of this really badly.
No, it's quite good what you're talking about the other stuff. That was reasonably charismatic. I thought.
You're not doing me any favours either.
What do you mean?
You never have, you know? 40... Did you see how many emails we've got?
I know, it's gone a bit mental.
14 years.
It's out of
being
control
friends with
now.
you.
I knew this would happen. They all watch the football.
14 years.
Well, whose fault is that?
That's nearly an armful.
Whose fault is that?
Me for not taking more positive action.
You deleted my number recently. That was quite offensive.
Paradigms for me. I'm going to raise it up, I fancy.
He is as well.
It's quite uneventful, this, really.
Quite a big commitment at this stage of the tournament, isn't it?
Yeah, probably should just go all in and get it over with.
Maybe.
Well,
you're in that
10 times
you're in
the
that
big blind.
grey area, aren't you? Of 10 times the big blind.
I'm a bit peed off, to be honest, by this stage of the tournament, and I'd probably call.
Right.
That's terrible, isn't it?
Well, let's talk about that.
Well, okay. Must we? If Michelle said that, I'd come down like a ton of bricks, wouldn't I?
Well, that's why we have to talk about that.
That's why P-Ring is angry with me.
Now, do you... P-Ring's not angry with us. I think it came from a position of love. And
Do we have to talk about it?
Yes, we do have to talk about
There's
it.
so many emails, and you're going to dwell on a little throwaway comment made by an ignoramus like me.
Yeah, I am, yeah.
All right.
Well, because you were. I mean, I was in the same room as you. You were frustrated.
Yeah, that's because you came back into vision and said, "You in a hand," and I was in a hand.
And then I immediately said, "Oh, you are. Let's move on." I didn't talk to you.
Okay. Next time, see whether I'm in a hand before you talk to me at all.
Or maybe get to the level with the game that you can tolerate a tiny distraction while you're playing. I mean, what if...
Get to the
I
level
was
with
going
the game.
to say, what if an attractive woman's playing against you? And then I realised that you'd already confessed that that was something that you found difficult.
Yeah.
No, I don't know who I'm to talk. I'm exactly the same.
As much fun as this game is, Nick,
Yeah.
we've got a lot of emails to get through, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got one, have you?
Dave says, "Hi guys, my favourite poker story is thanks to your good selves here at Poker Night Live. The night you had Dave the Devilfish Elliott on the show, he somehow managed to empty a cup of coffee on a most delicate area of himself and spent the next half hour trying to whisper for something to dry it up with." Yeah, that was funny, actually. It draws the parallel to the game itself. You can prepare as much as you like, but you never know what the game is going to throw you. Did anyone ever get in that cloth? He was literally sitting there going, "Have a cloth." Kind of a cloth.
This is the night that you were on.
This is the first night, yeah. Forget the second night where he tried to
well,
lick Lindsay's face and go, "The fish has got a hummer."
The fish has got a hummer.
The fish has got a hummer.
And also, the fish is a millionaire.
Yeah.
I want to bite your neck. If you're going to email and your story is about devilfish on Poker Night Live, how can it not be that?
Because whilst that was out funny and outrageous way,
Yeah.
I think if you were watching the show, there was something very subtly hilarious about someone trying to get under the radar of the microphone whilst requesting a cloth to dry up some coffee. You read an email and stop criticising.
When did I criticise?
Well, it's non-stop these days.
With
God,
good
we sound like a
reason.
couple. That's not good,
Not one
considering
that
my
get-
viewing
not one that
audience.
gets on.
No.
Don't worry there, we don't get on. Email from Stephen. My favourite folk story is about, I haven't pre-read this, this could be anything, we're gambling. It's about great fossil man Raymer. I heard that he was once going back to his hotel room after a day of poker at the Bellagio when he was approached by two men who proceeded to try and mug him right outside his room. What a brilliant story, it's the winner. So hang on, my grandma's dead, my grandma's dead, my grandma's dead. Right, Greg started shouting for help, which led one of the men pulling a gun on him. Greg later revealed what was going through his head at this moment. He says that when he was staring into the barrel of that gun, he remembered that only a small fraction of gunshot victims actually die there and then. He also noticed that the man's eyes...
It's statistician to the end.
It's unbelievable.
Around 4 or 5%.
I've evaluated the probabilities. I probably won't be dead. He also noticed that the man's eyes... It's exactly what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
I'd be going, "Gone!" The man's eyes kept darting towards the open door of his room. Greg decided that if he complied and went into the room, they would likely tie him up and he'd be left powerless. On top of this, the man looked nervous, and Greg thought he would probably not want to use the gun. Taking all this into consideration, he went against natural instinct and started shouting for help again. The man holding the gun panicked, dropped the bag he had and ran away. Later it was discovered the bag contained handcuffs. I find it mind-blowing that any man can make such an informed, calculated decision in that situation. Well, all joking apart, he's doing what he does at the poker table. I mean, Greg Raymer is legendary for his reads, and clearly he can do it under pressure.
Yeah.
And that's poker and life intersecting in a really powerful way.
Can we have a quick shot of me at the end just to finish the pot before we have to go to the break?
Fortunately, we're going to a break, so when we come back, we'll try and do a TV show for you.
I can't see her watching the next part.
I really like that one, by the way.
Yeah,
That's got a chance.
that's
Keep coming in, guys. Well, throughout tonight we've been lucky to be joined by Roy the Boy Brinley from the Poker Million that he's doing at the moment, and hopefully he's still there to give us some more chat. Are you there with us, Roy?
The phone still lives.
Hooray, Yahtzee. Now you're talking to us a little bit about what makes a good poker player, and I was interested that you said card sense is just inherent when you're talking about when you were coming up and playing. Do you think that that's something that's born and can't be taught?
I think your perception when you're young is massively enhanced. It is really a case of teaching old dogs new tricks. And right. I think, as a young man in Scotland at the moment, Rory Matthews, he's a great player. But, I understand that him and his family have been playing cards since, year zip. And that gives them a huge edge. I can't have it. You can know nothing about cards, read a book, and suddenly you're capable of winning the World Series. It just doesn't work like that.
And what does that mean, Roy, card sense? I'm sorry to be really pedantic about that, but what does that mean? If someone says card sense, I've got an intuitive understanding, but what do you mean by that phrase?
Well, for example, you pick up an ace-king suited and your opponent raises. It's just the understanding of your opponent and how he plays and why he plays and what he's likely to have, and if the timing is right to put your chips in. If you want him to call, if you're the sort of player that will call an ace-jack, it's just absolute understanding of what's going on around you. You can read all the books and they'll say, you should call with small pairs and hope to make trips and do it. Forget all that. It's about maximising every opportunity you've got. And I think if you play cards of some description for long enough, you will sort of pick up this sixth sense.
So you're actually talking about feel for the other players?
Yeah, people sense rather more than anything to do with the pieces of paper in your hand.
Feel's the right word. It's part of it. You've just got a system. Yeah, I just think there's some great players out there that have played cards from a very young age. Julian Gardner would come to mind here. That just have an edge because they just got this uncanny ability to know what's going on around them.
And where do you stand on the great sort of maths versus psychology debate? I mean, on the one hand, we've got people like Chris Jesus Ferguson and what's our billionaire friend, the mathematician?
Well, there's Andy Block.
Yeah.
Very,
and then on the other end of the spectrum, we've got the old guys from Texas, the Amarillo Slims, etc. Where are you, Roy? Do you think about the maths? Do you want to understand, get into this guy's head? What do you do, and what do you think great players do?
Well, let me put you the World Series final table, and you've got Ace King of Hearts, and the flop comes down with 2 hearts on it.
Yeah.
And the first guy bets, the second guy goes all in.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the question. What would you want to do? You think now, well, I've got 9 outs, I've got pot odds. Mathematically, I'm going to get paid out more than the true possibility or probability of this hand making. Or do you think this is the final table of the World Series, and I don't want to gamble, too much money at stake. I'll let these two go at it, hopefully knock each other out, and I'm a step closer, and I'll wait for a better opportunity.
Yep.
It's all about feel. You can have a situation. I saw it in the Poker Million. A guy had a huge draw. He knew exactly how many outs he had, and he passed the hand, and it was totally beyond me. But he said, I may have had a small mathematical edge, and I may be getting greater than even money, but it wasn't a time that I wanted to take a punt. You can't play the maths all the time. You've got to play the feel again.
But is it not a case of someone like Chris Jesus Ferguson will take the basic maths, if you like, and then put a lot of read of people into that to adjust the the basic figures, or I mean, if you've got a player like, I mean, and even Gus Hansen is, comes from a backgammon background. Do you think that they kind of throw all that out and will go with their feel at the end of the day, or what's your final view on that?
Well, listen, I'm never going to say I'm in the same league as these guys. Don't get me wrong, but I've commentated on a lot of poker that they've played. The Full Tilt Invitational comes to mind last year in Monte Carlo. Chris Ferguson never played a hand. The only hand he played was when he was on the big blind with an ace and a bad ace, an ace-4 and an ace-6, and he called an all-in. And to me, I thought that was absolutely woeful and pitiful. And similarly, Gus Hansen called an all-in holding something like King-5, and that was the only hand he played the entire game.
Right.
Gus Hansen, I know the guy's won 3 WPTs, but he's never made a final table in the World Series. And I honestly, I'll give anybody that want, 25 to 1, this guy finishes in the top 2 of a World Series event this year.
Roy, we're going to have to stop there. I know, great listening to you. Opinionated as ever, which is great. Wishing you all the best in the Poker Million, mate.
Yeah, cheers, fellas. Sorry I'm so opinionated.
No, it's perfect. It's just what we want. It'll stimulate the guys out there to get in touch. Thank you so much, mate. We'll speak to you again soon, I'm sure.
Fantastic.
Cheers,
everybody.
Good stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, excellent.
Very good.
Excellent.
Guys, we're going to be back very soon. Just got to step away for a couple of minutes. So, welcome back to the last hour of Poker Night Live. Now, apologies for the previous hour. We've had a good chat about it, a bit of a frank clearing of the air, if you like. And Caspar's apologised to everyone concerned, and we're going to have a really professional, tight last hour focused on the poker. Right. Brilliant. Brilliant, that's that then. We've had a good run. You actually got a whole one in there, haven't you? Whole dumpling. Did you dip it? Yeah. Thanks for the response to the emails, guys. It's been fantastic. Slow start, which we were quick to criticise. Wish I hadn't now, because now we've got 487 million emails. We're not going to get through them all, are we? But we're going to do our windy pops just then from the noodles. You'll get them in a minute. And the Coke.
Hi.
We got an email about that check raise that Ambience made. Would you like an email about that?
Yes.
Welsh Demon sent in an interesting thought. He says, with reference to Caspar's single table tournament earlier, and Ambience using a check raise against him when he both hit nothing on the flop and Caspar bet out, I think it was a damn fine move from Ambience to use a re-raise against you, Cass.
Well, you know what? I'm big enough to say I've assessed the situation. I've looked at the facts and I agree.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, perhaps I was speaking a little bit emotionally. I said what was his basis for doing that, and do you know what? Ironically, I think it was the fact that I accidentally raised before the flop. If I had just called before the flop, I don't think he would have done the check raise.
Yeah.
I felt there was a lot of chips to put at stake with nothing in the early stages of a tournament. However, as you think about it, the only things that I could have raised with, that I could have hit, were therefore, or that I could have called his check raise with, were ace-9, pair of tens, pair of jacks, pair of queens, pair of kings, or aces. That's all I could have called with. So, good stuff.
I have to admit, I made a decent amount of money taking small pots when we used to play Limit in Vegas, doing that out of the big blind. I think it might be even one of the 2+2 books where if your head's up with a razor and the flop comes small...
We don't have time for this, mate. We've got so many emails.
But you have time to eat a dumpling.
Sorry.
Welsh Demon also says, which you'll like and I like, since getting bored of internet play for a few months, I turned to live games. I've done very well and have usually come in the top few positions, which would have never happened if it wasn't for Poker Night Live. Thank you. It's always lovely to hear that, Welsh Demon. Good luck to you. Long may it continue. Have you got one you want to do?
Yes. Email from Glenn from Limerick says, hi guys, second email tonight and of all time. So there you are, you like the old...
I love new people.
He says, I'm sure you've heard the story of Amarillo Slim before as a proposition gambler, but just in case, I thought I'd send this in. I need a sneeze.
That's not a sneeze.
Amarillo Slim used to gamble a lot with friends. One such example involved guessing how many watermelons were in a lorry. So they found out the schedule of a lorry and stopped by the roadside one day waiting for it to come along. When it finally did, they stopped the lorry and paid the driver to get out and count his load of watermelons which it contained. When the driver had finished, Amarillo's friends were amazed to find he'd guessed exactly the amount and promptly paid him. How did Amarillo achieve this amazing feat? He was further down the road 1 hour earlier and paid the driver to count the exact amount. When he was with his friends 1 hour later, he knew exactly the amount. Not sure where I heard this, maybe in Doyle Brunson's Super System. Cheers. Great email. Amarillo, I think actually we should award the books to Amarillo Slim, brackets deceased.
And Jack Strauss.
Because he is...
Between the two.
Yeah, between the two. They are the stars of tonight.
They are.
Have you got one?
Well, yeah, we're kind of alternating between the competition and your single-table tournament. Johan Harron's got in touch about the ace-queen hand.
Excellent.
He says, I know I have a reputation for being aggressive, so when I raise on the button, no one put me on a hand, and re-raised me with much worse hands than ace-queen. So we were right. He thought he had the best hand. I put you on a decent hand, but not as good as mine. 2 high cards or maybe an ace. Felt that you wanted to let me know quite early in the game that your blind wasn't for me to steal, so I moved in case I thought I had the best hand. So... let me say one thing. Please do say one thing.
And I hope I have demonstrated over the years my fairness in saying when I'm wrong or saying when I disagree with my own self and that sort of thing. I think if I'd had 2 things, I would have re-raised Johan in that situation. And those 2 things were more time to consider just that, because I did call the fact that he didn't put me on ace-queen, right? And the second thing is more of a stack. I'm not going to re-raise it. I'm not going to put my entire tournament on the strength of that decision alone. But those 2 things combined, I think, a little bit more time to consider and a little bit more Blake Bynes in my stack, and I would have re-raised him. But let me just say one thing, and I say this many, many times, folks. Time is a factor in poker, and it's certainly a factor in online poker. And that's why you need to drill these situations and think about the game so you can make those decisions quickly. Yeah. See? Rusty.
I think you'll like this one, Cass. It's a story that I haven't heard before from Jay Peters. Thank you for this, Jay Peters. Hi guys, your unprofessionalism is what makes P&L great. Right, well, I mean, we don't see it like that. We're just, some of us are struggling to...
Tonight, mate, you say that. Yeah. I've arranged a date live on air.
She didn't actually say yes, though.
Ordered a meal, not yet, give it time. I've eaten the meal and abused one of our viewers. So...
Jay Peters' favourite moment from poker involving a top celebrity poker person is Andy Mad Monk Black, who we talked about briefly with Des Wilson, the Buddhist retreat guy. I live in Ireland and have been fortunate to play with Andy in several tournaments. I'm always impressed by how he conducts himself and treats others at the table. That'll be the Buddhist thing, I expect. He really is a true gentleman of the game. The incident was at the World Series last year when a player hadn't turned up at the start of the last day before play moved to Binion, so I think that's the penultimate day of the tournament. And he pleaded with the table to slow the game down until said player arrived after trying to stop the entire tournament from starting. He was so visibly very upset the other players wouldn't play along with this. This is my favourite moment in poker because it's so rare these days, especially with the advent of the poker brat. Born from overacting players spattered across TV. Andy, I salute you. P.S. I'd love for both of you to sign my book if I'm chosen.
Ah, well, now that does give an extra bonus points.
That's clever. He's the first one to take advantage of that loophole.
Yes, good, excellent, fantastic. I've got to tell you something. We'll talk about this later as this part goes on. I can't believe we've only got an hour left in each other's company.
I know.
But I have a big problem with this whole morality in poker thing. I do not understand what is wrong with playing poker by the rules to take other people's money. I disagree with Des. I don't think that Andy is confused. I don't think that presents any contradiction with the principles of Buddhism at all. I don't think it does.
I wish I disagree, because then we could have an argument, but I agree with you. I agree with you. People, it's personal responsibility, isn't it? If people put their money down, they're entering into the game, and that's that. You're all trying to win the game, I'd have thought.
Also, this part, in the space of an hour, we're going to discuss my midlife breakdown and depression.
I don't want them to stay tuned.
It's interesting.
They'll all get down.
It's not. It's upbeat.
It's got a happy ending.
Email from... Look at me now.
Look at him now. An unprofessional, happy lunatic.
Email from Enigma. Another good poker moment, he says. This time not made up. This is brilliant. Some friends of mine were playing at the gut shot, and who walks in but Phil Helmuth? He sits down at 50-parent game, starts playing like a maniac, raising, re-raising, and moving in with almost anything. Very fun evening. And then he says, and this does put it up in my book, please give me a book. I have nothing to read on the plane to Vegas. That's Enigma.
That's just begging at the end.
This is the most emails we've ever had. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Keep going. Come on. Let's go for it. Sorry.
You spend the whole night joshing around, and suddenly you're massively up for it.
Come on.
Honestly, it's like... P-Ring's emailed back. So P-Ring had a couple of problems with Caspar and I. Completely fair.
Early doors.
Says, Caspar, I'm very relieved that you're just joshing with Michelle. You're a fountain of knowledge, and I'm sure she loves to learn from you. She does love a fountain. If you're serious, I know a lovely girl who's between friends at the moment. No, Caspar doesn't want a lovely girl. You're so far off the mark. Also, talking about your breakdown is a humbling experience for us all. He's going to come on to that, I'm sure. Sorry, Nick, if you're bullied in King's Lynn. I'm sure it goes on everywhere. Well, does it? I know karate now, so it won't be happening again, is all I'm saying. And I'm continually trying to validate myself through building a media profile. So it hasn't scarred me, and I'm back on the road to success.
It's not coming across as ironic?
I was trying for that. Still very bad. I love the fresh air, quiet roads, clean beaches, and enjoy horse racing at Fakenham, Great Yarmouth and Newmarket, and golf at Kingston and Hunstanton. Indeed, today I won at Kingston with 45 points, which is the most I've had in over 21 years of golf. P. Ring, I salute you. I hope to see you in lovely Kings Lynn very soon.
You know how the tournament slipped time? Have I just slipped time in the real world?
What?
I seem to come into a different show or a different part of a different email.
That's the one. That's the one that we've spent the last 2 hours in while you've been talking.
Let's get back to the game.
Back to the game. We have to keep doing emails because there's a trillion, aren't there?
There are a trillion.
We can't do the game. We can, just when I thought, and we can. So we're still on your sit and go. God, it's like
They still keep coming.
we delete some emails and then there's more than when we started again.
I'm going to turn this point into a political point and recall an interview with Jeff Hoon, which we both enjoyed, didn't we? When he was on Newsnight, and the interviewer said to him, "So how are you going to combat terrorism, Jeff Hoon? Because at the moment it seems like you're just cutting heads off the Hydra." And Jeff Hoon replied, "Well, we're going to keep on cutting off the heads." Now, I don't know if anyone knows what a Hydra is, but it's a beast that when you chop off its head, it grows 7 more heads. So for Jeff Hoon to say that actually give a fascinating insight into the government's anti-terrorism policy. That as long as you keep on killing the terrorists, eventually they'll die off. A bit like our emails.
Writ large recently when they assassinated al-Zarqawi in Iraq, and the next day Al-Qaeda named a new leader in Iraq.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't name 7 leaders.
And, 7 leaders. And it was like, you could just imagine the American and British top echelons. Oh, bloody hell.
I thought it was checkmate.
Well, what have we got to do then?
We've just taken their king.
This is ridiculous.
They know the rules.
It's like they've got an idea, and the idea doesn't die with a particular individual. That's ridiculous.
And you know what? They're recruiting.
Shut up, are they?
God.
Keep cutting off heads, you utter morons.
Keep reading the emails, you morons.
Here's a good one from Mike Harris, entering our competition to win a signed book. It's a good one, because I haven't heard it before. He says he's not completely sure of the details, but it's a good story. A player called Kirillov was in the final stages of a major tournament, as we see Johan Harren leave the major tournament. Made a move to steal the blinds. LP called him 9-6 and lots of chips.
Right, well... Yeah, let's go back. Let's have a look at that. Okay, so Johan calls before the flop, right? Johan raises before the flop all in, and Elpig dwells for a long time and then calls him with 9-6.
Yeah.
With leaving himself, by the way, with only about 1,000. So he calls for about half his stack with 9-6 from the big blind. Can you enlighten me? Not a clue. I mean, it's a really open and shut conversation, this, because I can't justify it in any way.
It was for half his stack, was it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
Johan had about 1,000 left.
Right.
Any justification at all?
None that I can think of, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Elpig, I don't mean to be sitting here making a unduly negative point. I mean, Johan was.
It's one of those situations.
Missed.
It's one of those situations TJ talks about in his book, which is not a great book, but has a couple of nuggets. And he says it's one of those things where Elpig knows Johan is probably stealing and probably doesn't have a premium hand.
Right.
The point is, Elpig still has 9-6.
Right.
The fact that you've read him as a steal and you're right is irrelevant. You've still almost certainly got the worst hand.
But I think TJ says something like you've certainly got Queen 4. I mean, at least with Queen 4, you're beating 10 jacks. You know what I mean? Which is the kind of hand that someone might raise with. With all due respect to Elpig, good player, I think. You've got 9-6. It's not even there's no argument about it. So I can't get into that at all. If anyone, and including Elpig, can throw any light on it.
Yeah, Elpig, let us know.
Please.
Mike Harris has got this story about Kirillov in the final stage of the tournament. It's an interesting poker situation. He checked on the river and thought that his opponent had checked also, so turned over his hole cards. However, his opponent complained in fact he hadn't acted and still had the right to act. The tournament director agreed with him and he went all in. Kirillov thought for a few seconds, then called and won the hand. Interesting. Isn't it?
It is interesting, and I want to talk about my position in the tournament now, because I've just gone through 2 blinds, which at this stage of 163.20 have cost me 480. And I looked down, and in the same way that we didn't talk about it in the commentary as it happening, I didn't think about it as it's happening in the game, and that's... It's good. It's good to see a massive error that I've made. I mean, people will say, no, you haven't made an error, you just haven't had any cards. But for me, that is how you need to play a single table tourney. In other words, you need to take action before you get into this situation. Because while you still have 1,400, you still have massive fold equity. And now I have almost no fold equity. And that word, folks, which we've defined on a previous show as being, you know, the likelihood and the expectation that you get from someone folding. In other words, what's the chance of them folding? Is it 60, 70%? That means you have a 70% chance of winning the hand there and then without even turning your cards over and putting it to a, you know, a dice roll or a spin the bottle contest. That is when you need to make a move in sit and go. So now here I am at 860. I move in with 860. I have no leverage at all, or leverage, depending on which side of the Atlantic you come from. And Ambient sits there, and he writes in the chat box, OK, you've got a big ace. And he says, it's bigger than my ace. And he would fold if I was sitting there with 1,500 in my stack.
Right.
Yeah? But he calls, because it's only 500 more, and he feels he's correct to call. And I'm quite happy when I see the cards turned over. And I'm really quite upset when I see that. And so I'm taking out the tournament. Now, no offence to Ambience at all. That's, I don't think he did a catastrophic thing. It was a result of my letting my stack get low. And I let my stack get low 6 hands previously when I allowed myself to go through those blinds before making a move first. 10 hands previously. That's the issue. That's where it is, folks. That is what a sit and go is about right there.
Well, I think that's very interesting. You said that it wasn't too interesting a sit and go, but I think that end is very interesting.
Well, let's hope. Don't think it was as much learning as we often get from sit and goes, but we've got a decision to make, haven't we, about these emails, like whether we try and get through them all.
Of course we try and get through them
all. All right, OK. I just don't want it to become email central, but actually, to be honest, we've been quite email light on shows recently, so let's have a show like that. Well, we started off talking with Des Wilson, didn't we? About
there's been a lot of different things, to be honest with you, Cass.
I'm enjoying my my sort of. I do 5 shows in a row these days, and I really enjoy it, getting through lots of different things and having different kinds of shows.
Right. Anything else about your
About me?
schedule or you that you want to... You've got in quite a lot.
No, I think that's it for now.
Is it?
Updates as events warrant.
Brilliant. I didn't know this. Nathan's emailed in to tell us that Amarillo Slim was attending the opening of the Casino de Caribe in Colombia when he was kidnapped by agents of the drug lord Pablo Escobar, who mistook him for someone else. Now, knowing Amarillo Slim, he probably paid them as a publicity stunt.
Some people just have lives where things happen to them, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, I've got a friend who was who stood and watched September 11th. He was in New York. It was about 400 yards away from the first impact. He was on the train before the Hatfield train disaster. He saw another terrorist attack in London. It's just like... And he's an ex-marine.
What's his middle name? Lucky.
He goes on expeditions to the North Pole, and it's just like, wow, you know, you're just someone who seems to attract adventure. Do you know what I mean? Law of attraction.
Nathan's also asked, what's the right bankroll for a 25, 50 cent no-limit cash game? Well, there's a bit of contention about that, Nathan. I think Caspar thinks it's higher than most people tend to say. The answer you often get is 20 times the maximum buy-in. I think probably 40 is a bit better, to be honest.
We think 2,000 times the big blind.
Oh, that's confused me. I think that's the same thing, yeah.
No, isn't it?
That's the same thing.
Is it?
Well, the maximum buy-in is $50, so
Okay.
40 times $50 is
2,000.
2,000.
No, but that's 4,000
so
times.
That's 4,000.
No, we don't think 4,000. We think about 2,000 times the big blind. But let's just make an important point about this, folks, which is something touched on by Tom and I at the end of our show on Sunday night, which is that Nick and I had a very interesting conversation the other day in Chili's where we figured out something about bankroll, which is obvious if you're a mathmo, but we're always very honest and say that, you know, we're not maths geniuses in any way. And I've been labouring under the delusion, I think everyone does to a certain extent, that there's a standard sort of truth, if you like, that goes around the gambling community, which is, you know, 1,000 times the big blind is your bankroll for a cash game. If you're a winning player, of course. And that's based on the fact that, you know, you have, I don't know the exact figure, Sklansky actually says it's once in every 300 sessions you'll go through a 300 bet losing streak. However, that is a probability. And what happens is the probability just becomes less and less of a greater than 300 bet losing streak. In other words, and I'm making these figures up, but there could be once in every 500 sessions you'll have a 500 bet losing streak, or once in every 2,000 sessions or 2 million hands you'll begin a 1,000 bet losing streak. In other words, whilst the probability becomes infinitesimally small, it is statistically correct to say that there is no bankroll that will insure you against variance completely. As Tom's friend, who is a statistical bod, said, if you play for an infinite amount of time, there is no level of edge and no bankroll that will assure you from going broke. Because there is probability dictates that there is a tiniest probability that you'll lose 1 million big bets. So that's very, very important to understand that when we talk about bankroll, what we're talking about is we're talking about a manageable number. So what we're saying is basically, all right, lots of different things can happen, but what's manageable is the concept that it's very unlikely, but bear in mind those words, it's very unlikely that you'll ever lose more than 1,000 times the big bet or 2,000 times the big blind. That's what we're saying.
If you're a winning player.
If you're a winning player, of course. But just because something's 1 billion to 1 doesn't mean to say it won't happen. It means, as someone put it perfectly on this show once, precisely the opposite. It means it absolutely will happen once in every billion times on average.
That girl could want a date with you. It could happen.
I don't think so after tonight.
No, it could happen. Everything's possible.
Apparently she said it was a boring show.
Well, in that case...
She's not a poker player.
In that case, well, wait a minute.
Well.
I think I speak for the entire audience, Spoken Live, when I say that none of us want you going out with somebody like that.
Okay.
She clearly has no judgment.
Okay. I think your point earlier on was better, which is I'm not going to start doing the show on a date with her.
I know, it's quite a weird reaction.
I'm not in a restaurant going to go...
It's quite a weird reaction from her,
Enigma's emailing me at the moment, Leah. He says, what would you do if you had ace-king? I'm not going to do that.
It's unlikely.
No.
I mean, I do it, but you're not going to. You're a bit better on dates.
Not recently, mate. I've got to be honest with you. I'm losing my touch.
No, getting old.
That is it.
And that thing you said about bankroll and everything, just if anyone's out there trying to get, make money out of poker, we discovered that when we were having a chat in Chili's. We basically invented that, didn't we? That's not.
What's your point?
Well, my point is, that's our idea there, that we can't. Other people can't say that's their idea.
I'm not sure you can patent a mathematical concept, mate, I've got to be honest with you.
Well, you say that, look at Stephen Hawking. I've got an email from Chris, who says, on a trip to the seaside in Essex in the summer 2003, I was at the bar ordering a drink. As I was putting my wallet away, I elbowed an older gentleman's drink onto the floor. After many apologies, I bought him another Diet Coke. Anyway, it wasn't until I went back to my family that my brother let me know I just chucked a drink over the world's most famous poker player, Nick Wealthall. At the time, no, it's not that. At the time, it meant nothing to me, since though through my brother I've really got into poker, it was only Doyle Brunson.
Good God.
I still don't believe it, but Doyle does mention Essex in Super System.
Meanwhile, Charwell has got a king, and Ambience has only got a pair of fours. So Ambience, who took me out of the tournament, can't even go on to win the bugger. And Charwell wins with a pair of kings.
It's not treating your chips with respect, is it?
No, I worked hard for those. I didn't, actually, and I'm really annoyed.
Oh.
I'm annoyed with myself.
It's this cross-face.
I am crossed because I, when you sit down, what's the point of sitting down if you don't intend to win it? And I just let it slip away from me because I went to sleep for about 4 hands is effectively what I did.
And you must be present, mustn't you? You must be active and present in a poker game.
You've got to be present, and I think, Roy said this, didn't he, in one of the calls? He said, it's in those fast tournaments, you've got to be aware of your blinds in relation to your stack in relation to the blinds and the average stack. And it's absolutely right, and it's something that I've been saying. And you've got to be aware of the players into relationships with other and their propensity to take each other out. And that's what those tournaments are about. It's not about waiting for aces. And I didn't do that tonight, and that's bad.
Got a good email from Ian here. It is his second email of the night, and apologies to all of you that haven't got one read out, but it is a cracker. Another story about Amarillo Slim. He once accepted a 10k wager on a table tennis game for anyone in the world his opponents could find. Someone took the challenge and put him against a great Asian ping pong player. However, Slim turned up on the day with frying pans instead of paddles, with which he'd been practicing for months, promptly beat his opponent. He said the wager was open again to anyone else who fancied it, so someone took him up on it, trained a professional ping-pong player with frying pans and was sure of victory. He turned up on the day of the match only to find Slim waiting with cereal boxes for paddles. Slim won again. What a genius he was. By the way, I don't mean to sound like I was begging for a book. I'm genuinely off to Vegas within the week and have nothing to read. Please don't make me watch Miss Congeniality or whatever crap they put on the flight.
Well, that's very old. They're always very cutting edge, I think you'll find, particularly if you travel Virgin, who have a good deal with distributors, I'm sure, because you see a lot of films before they come out in England.
Any tips for a third-time visitor to Vegas but a first-time player?
Ooh.
I've been a couple of times before. I'm staying at the MGM. Well, the MGM has a big new poker room that's been there for about the last few months I haven't visited, but apparently is...
The MGM.
But now, you see, we love the MGM. Now it's got a big poker room.
I know, but I love the MGM because it's the first hotel we ever stayed in.
Yeah.
I'll never forget one of my 10 life memories. Got to Vegas at about 9 o'clock, obviously very hot. It was July, wasn't it, the first time?
Yeah, me and him.
Yeah. And taxi to the MGM. Wow, big building, extraordinary place, etc., etc. Went upstairs, freshened up, shower, changed, walked around the casino for about 2 hours, walked outside at midnight, boof, this massive blast of hot air hit my face, looked up and looked at the thermometer in the sky, 39 degrees centigrade. I just
Silly money, that, isn't it?
I could retire here. Yeah.
Quite happy.
And I did. I was 25 for 3 years, and I went back to work.
Shouldn't have.
No, mistake.
Christian has emailed in to say his favourite moment in poker with a big name poker player was the Poker Night Live Big Fight Live, which is the night when Mark and James kept arguing with each other. Every time James made a comment, Mark would follow it by saying, "I'm sorry, James, but I have to disagree with you." I think it was the other way round, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks to James and Mark for this hilarity. Any chance of a rerun? I think the lawyers have stepped in to prevent it, to be honest. And thanks, Cass, for your comments yesterday on the psychology of tilting. It's helped a lot. Changed my mindset, and I think it's working.
Yeah, I wish it worked for me today.
You got a little bit tilty for a minute, didn't you?
When?
Yeah,
I didn't really play
today.
tilty. No, what you mean in terms of my attitude?
Yeah,
I didn't really let that affect the game. No, unfortunately, I didn't get any chance to get tilty in the game because my biggest mistake tonight was to just, as you say, turn off, stop concentrating.
I think we have to go to the MTT final table, don't we?
Contractually.
At some point, contractually. It's not if I want, it's if the sponsor wants. Not my words, the words of... Here we are, the final table of the multi-table tournament. This is a free roll. And there's $300 up for grabs for those people that have entered for nothing, which can't be bad. Just seeing if there's anyone we know. Not sure there is. So welcome to all of you, new players to
Duffy 80, you were talking about him earlier on.
He was playing earlier and had a big stack earlier. He's still
Drum
got a big
Ace, we
stack.
know.
Oh yes, Drum Ace.
Not that we're not welcoming everyone, for goodness
Well,
sakes.
completely the opposite. I would love to hear from any of the people on the final table who are
Absolutely,
making their first TV appearance.
Absolutely. In a way, you're more important to
More important. We've got a hell of a job on Caspar, so we've got all these emails and we've got to judge the winners before we go off air.
I know. It's God, look at the time. So, can I just say very quickly the point about the low self-esteem?
Yes, the background for those of you that weren't with us earlier was Caspar and Tom had a discussion last night, which was about...
me and Michelle.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. Yeah. Which was about how Michelle's rubbish at poker, wasn't it? That's my joke. It was about how your view of yourself affects the way that you play and the results that you get in poker and in life, right?
Yeah.
So you can pick it up from there while I eat some noodles.
And Nick's point, perfectly reasonable point, partly playing devil's advocate. Let's just have a look at this hand, actually, because we've got ace, king, queens, pair of kings, and I can remember where I was, don't worry about that. Poker guide, and just calls, I think, Nick, if I can see the numbers correctly against the...
yeah, he's all in, Drum Ace.
Funny chair background. Yeah, but there are players to come behind him. Wouldn't you want to be raising and getting more money in the pot there, or...?
No, I think I'd want somebody else in, to be honest.
You want to call, OK.
Well, Drum Ace has only got 9,000. It's only 3 times the big blind.
Mm-hmm.
Poker Guide's got the big stats, so I'd want somebody else to play.
And once again, I've shot my mouth off, and I agree with you.
You just didn't take in the chip stack first.
Actually, I've had 8 hours sleep in the last 3 nights, so...
That's going to have an effect, isn't it? Great situation for poker. Gooden takes out 2 players.
Well, that's a beautiful situation.
What a nice situation.
So Nick's perfectly reasonable question was, what if, you know, you are down on your luck in life for any one of a number of reasons? What does that mean? That you're then going to precipitate or cause bad results in poker and in everything else that you're doing? And I replied...
Just to slightly clarify,
Please
I was
do.
just concerned that if people were exposed to the idea that what the results they were getting were the view of how they viewed themselves, or the reflection of how they viewed themselves, then that might send them on a negative spiral, and that they might think, oh, I really am worthless then because the results prove it.
Absolutely.
That's just my concern.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's a valid concern. Okay, a couple of quick prefaces in my usual way. Number one, this is not a psychology show, folks, and everything that we're doing is with specific reference to making you better poker players, and I have no formal qualifications. Whilst I'm a trainer, that is my job in all areas of psychology, you know, I do not have a formal professional qualification in it, as we see Poker Guide and go all in, but of course it's only really a raise of 24,000, which is what Yugon has. He's putting him to a decision for all his chips in the tournament, and that'll teach Yugon to call with King 6 suited in early position when you've got very few chips left. There's no reason to ever do something like that. So that's the general caveat that I'd add here, but unfortunately the reason why I have to add that caveat is that we're talking about some quite heavy things, and there are going to be people in the audience who disagree with it and who do think that maybe what I have said and I'm going on to say is offensive and unfair to people who don't consider themselves to be optimists. Kara, for example, actually doesn't consider herself to be an optimist, and she was just concerned that some of my comments that seemed to criticise the absence of an optimistic mindset. Again, getting into very deep waters there, and I don't really want to go there except to say it's really not that simple, and if you want to read about optimism and pessimism, then your man is Martin Seligman in the books Authentic Happiness and Flexible Optimism, which extols the virtues of both an optimistic and a pessimistic mindset, but points out that optimists do tend to have more successful results in life. Although interestingly, Nick, something that you might like as a hater of the corporate world, pessimism is often rewarded and perceived as being a sign of greater intelligence, which is why everyone subconsciously believes that it's good to come down on an idea because it makes you look more intelligent than if you
right,
pick it
I
up.
understand that.
Yeah,
and you know, I've caught myself doing that. You be cynical
That's
so
right.
that you look like you know better than whatever the new idea is.
That's right, that's right.
Interesting.
Okay, so here I am. I'm someone who had a very tough time in my mid-20s, and I'll give you a very brief background, folks, for those of you who don't know. I'm not sure I've talked about it on the show before. The reason, one of the many reasons why one would make a very big decision in life and move to Las Vegas and play poker is because I was desperately unhappy with my life. I was a writer, started off, had a lot of success in my early days, wrote a couple of screenplays that were made for Film 4, Columbia TriStar, I was working for Miramax and Channel 4 and BBC and all sorts of things, everything going well. And then slowly and inexorably, between the ages of about 23 and 25, I got to the stage where I hated my job, hated my life, hated the world that I was working in, and my lifelong childhood dream of becoming a film director had turned incredibly sour. And I did have a genuine midlife crisis, and in the darkest times of which I thought I was going a bit loopy. So, and during that time, and subsequently, I've suffered from bouts of depression. What does that mean? What it means, folks, is that unfortunately, Nick's challenge to me can be absolutely right. In other words, if you're having a tough time of it, it can create a snowball, a vicious circle, which is very difficult to stop and control. No doubt about it.
Just to put flesh on those bones, there's somebody in my life who you know, who, when I give her examples of how people have turned themselves around or turned their lives around, she feels more inadequate because she doesn't feel that she can do that. And when she sees the success of others, which, you know, for some of us, when we see the success of others, it inspires us. For others, it makes things even worse because they go, well, I can't do that either. I'm even worse than they are because I can't turn it around.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
difficult.
Okay, so I'm going to say something now, which is a premise which changed my life. Okay, and it's this. What we're talking about here, the word that we're skirting around is the word belief. Okay, it's the word belief. That if you have belief in yourself, then that belief through processes, some of which we can explain, some of which we can't, the mind is a mystery, the universe is a mystery, that belief will manifest itself somehow. And I don't believe that there's a single person in the viewing audience who hasn't experienced that feeling of being on good runs when they believe in themselves and bad runs when they don't, whether they flop 4 races or not. Okay? So belief is something incredibly important and vital if we buy into the basic premise of this philosophy, belief system, worldview, call it what you will. So the question is, what creates belief? What creates belief? And I struggled with that for about 6 years, reading, thinking, asking, and couldn't get an answer. And then a wise man told me, and there's an enormous amount to say about this, but let me tell you what creates belief as far as I'm concerned. It's gratitude. It's gratitude for what you have. Stopping simply and realising what you have and how blessed you are. No matter what your life is, no matter literally whether you're homeless, no matter literally whether you are, as I was, a physical, mental, emotional wreck with literally no self-confidence, no belief, but I had a roof over my head, I had a mum that loved me. Some people don't have that, but they have, a bowl of soup that night. Whatever it is, most of us aren't that unfortunate folks. Most of us have a job and a family and friends and an extraordinary amount to be thankful for. Indeed, most of us, certainly watching this show, are in the top 0.01% of the population. And the effect of that gratitude is just extraordinary. You actually feel it working within the space of minutes on your life. And I strongly recommend, by the way, if anyone's thinking about this as interesting or useful, is that a process you can go through is actually genuinely to sit down and to start listing things for which you are grateful. And you suddenly start to realise what extraordinary things you do have in your life, and you can feel the belief coming into it. And I'm just going to finish this little section with a very brief anecdote, which is, I don't think I've talked about this on air either, but who cares? When I was, 4 years ago exactly, I developed arthritis. So I'm 33 now, developed it when I was 29. And I had a very, very specific reaction to developing arthritis, which then and now still means that I get up some mornings and I'm in a lot of pain, okay? And my reaction was, and I stress this, got to stress this, Nick, right? This was not my conscious choice, because my body could quite easily have gone, oh, bloody hell, that's not fair. Right?
Yeah.
But for some reason, thank God, it didn't. For some reason, my body went, wow. It woke up in the morning, it was in pain, and the first thought that I had every morning was, some people wake up every morning in pain that I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Millions of people wake up every morning in this country and display bravery, the like of which I can't imagine, because they are disabled or they're dealing with life issues that I've always taken for granted that I never had to deal with them. And what happened at that period of my life was I became flooded by this sense of gratitude. And from then to now, I've had some hard days and some easy days, but what I've had, as we see Totella making 2 pairs there, what I've had is a tremendous run fueled by the belief that gratitude has created. And it was because my body, for some reason, decided to realise just how lucky it was instead of feeling sorry for itself. As I spent, incidentally, most of the period between the ages of 21 and 25 feeling sorry for myself. So there you are. That's the answer to the question. There's a negative side to it and a positive side to it, and I hope that if people don't agree with it, then they see it as another tool, not a rule. And if people do agree with it, then they sit down and write a list of the 100 things that they have to feel grateful for in their lives.
I do genuinely...
Which, incidentally, I do quite a lot.
I do genuinely think that there are happy people and unhappy people, and it's got nothing to do with... It's just got nothing to do with your life situation. Because there are unhappy people in bad situations and unhappy people in good situations. I mean, the obvious cliched examples of people like Robbie Williams and et cetera, who have everything and feel depressed, and other people, of course, who are happy and have nothing. And it is gratitude. That is the answer. But what's the answer for these players, Caspar? As they try and figure out the poker questions. Well, Dave's answer is to take an early shower and collect 5th place. But he's still got a bit of cash for no entry fee, so it's not all bad. He should be grateful for that.
My situation for Totolo there? Sorry, yes.
The bottom line with poker is that, you know, even if you're playing it for a living, it should be an enjoyable activity. You know, thank goodness you have the opportunity to sit down and play cards and not have to worry about where your next dinner's coming from.
That's it, man, seriously.
And yet people go mental over getting outdoors.
Seriously.
How dare Phil Hellmuth go on the rants he goes on and get so unhappy about what he does when he has so much in his life? It's not right.
And that is genuine. I mean, you know, joke about it, but that is genuinely where something like Buddhism for Andy, was it Andy
Black?
Not Black, it's Andy Block.
It's
Buddhism for
annoying
someone
that
like
there's
Andy
two and
Black.
they're both very prominent in poker, isn't it?
Can be incredibly helpful for him because it cultivates that stillness of the mind within which decisions are more easily made. And when we talk about the word leverage, leveraging your abilities and your outputs, it can be absolutely invaluable.
We're going to have to make a decision on some winners of our competition, I think. We've only got 10 minutes
I think the Greg
left.
Raymer story for me has yet to be topped.
OK, well, that's Stephen with the Greg Raymer story.
What was the last Amarillo Slim story? Because that was funny.
Well, we've had, I think Ian should be a winner because he sent in two. The second one was Amarillo Slim about the table tennis, and he's going to Vegas, so his sympathy stories worked. So that's two winners.
OK.
Given that we've been talking about gratitude and karma and being nice and to your fellow man, I think Jay Peters' Andy Black story about trying to help the player that was missing the tournament should probably get one.
I
No,
disagree.
don't like the story? See, Jay Peters is sitting there now. He's had glory shown to him, taken away. He doesn't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah, you're right, that's not nice. Let's give it to him.
And one more, maybe?
Ooh, 4. Well, let's read out a couple more and see if we have a winner in those.
See if there's any more come up to the standard. Serve has sent in a good story. It is one I've heard, but possibly not one everyone else has heard. Dear Cass and Nick, great show as always. Pleasure to meet Nick at the Poker Night Live away day. Shame Cass couldn't make it.
Sorry, can I just say, folks, I honestly fell asleep on my couch at 7:30 and didn't wake up again the next day till 9 o'clock in the morning.
I think he's not blaming you, he's just saying
No, I
it's a
know,
shame.
but I honestly wanted to go.
It was a great pleasure meeting you too, mate. Really enjoyed the evening. Hope we can arrange another PNL away day soon. I'm sure we will. His favourite story is Jack Strauss. This man is a legend,
I know.
as we see
Honestly, it's a good book
Leonola
for Jack Strauss.
go out and wear heads up in our tournament, if you're watching that in the background. He had 7-2 offsuit, he was on a rush and he played the hand, he raised, was called by one opponent, and the flop came down 7-3-3. He'd hit top pair, but his opponent, who was a tight player, placed a big bet. Jack called knowing he must have an overpair and was representing trip threes. The turn card was a 2, ironically giving Jack 3 pairs, but still no good. Jack made a large bet on the turn, making his opponent really think whether he was behind or not. While his opponent thought, he proposed a deal where his opponent could give him $25 and he'd show him one of his hole cards. The opponent gave him the $25 and picked one of the 2 cards on offer. Jack flipped over the 2, and his opponent thought more about this and eventually folded, assuming the other card must also be a 2 and Jack must have a full house. The greatest thing about this bluff is if the opponent picked the 7, the same result would have happened. He'd still have folded his hand.
Yeah.
It's a masterful bit of psychology, that. That's from Likey Serve, in case I didn't make that clear at the outset. Good one, Likey Serve.
Is it up there?
It's a great story.
Is it safe?
How many are we giving away, Mr. Producer, keeper of all the knowledge and the books? Heads up between Tutalia and Poker Gudden. Poker Gudden's flop top pair, big hand heads up. Now these guys have got a huge amount of chips here. If they wanted to, this heads up could go on for a while. Forever, actually. Huh.
An infinite amount of time, you're saying?
Could it, theoretically?
I don't know.
Oh, it could, of course it could, because they could both continuously fold.
What if the blinds continue to escalate? That would just be silly, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if the blinds are capped, though, it could go on forever.
Yeah.
Really pointless discussion. But the blinds are very small in relation to the stacks. Just depends how fast they want to play.
It's been a good night tonight, hasn't it?
It's been great. We started off with Des Wilson. That seems a long time ago. We've packed a lot in.
I'm worried about one thing, though.
What?
Well, I think that if I was in there, the vision mixer would have been onto me saying that she'd, received a text back from...
Why are you worried, mate? You don't want to go out with a girl that thinks your TV show's boring, because A, she's wrong, and B, how dare she?
All good points.
We'll find you a better one. I don't know why we'll find you. We'll find me one. Are there any sisters out there enjoying Poker Night Live together? There, in your
house.
Singledom, looking for a couple of likely lads. Not going to happen, is it? Give it up. I think we're almost closing the door on the competition. You could still sneak under the wire if you came up with something ruddy brilliant in about 3 seconds. But we're almost done. 5 minutes left in the show, guys. Winners, we've got 3 winners at the moment. Cass, are you happy to stick on that? Then the others grab you?
No, I mean, do you know what? I've been the panel so much, and I realised towards the end of being the panel that I was probably getting a bit petty about that. So I'd rather that you tonight had your shot at being the panel.
Well, they're all good, weren't they? Flush draw for Poker Gooden.
And that's why I was the panel.
I'm not really a judge as such. More of a loquacious knob. To phase 10 and is ahead, but Poker Gooden has the flush draw. Will he call with the flush draw? No, he doesn't, and on we go.
Well, we are actually in trouble now, so that's brilliant.
What's wrong with saying knob?
Don't! Not again.
Sorry, I apologise. I apologise for saying that word, which I won't say anymore. It's just a light, fluffy word for idiot. I apologise to the children that are watching. I was, of course, referring to a knob of butter that you might use in cooking a rich sauce for, say, a steak or a fish. I'm afraid we have to leave this, guys. We're not going to pack it in. They've just got too many chips. Poker Gruden was the runner-up. Is that right? I'm right. Tortellini, Leany, Weeny, Linear was first, so congratulations to him. Well played. To everyone in the free roll, congratulations. Sorry we couldn't show it all. Huge number of chips in play, ended up being longer than we expected, but hope you appreciate we've packed in quite a lot tonight, guys. Huge amount of emails. Thank you so much for the response, even though I know it's because we've just got a prize, which makes you cheap. All right, mate, got one you'd like to read out?
No, I'm flicking through, seeing all the great stuff that we've got tonight. Have you got one?
At the moment, our winners are Mr. Peters, Jay Peters for his Andy Black, Stephen with the Greg Raymer story, Ian with the Amarillo Slim story with the table tennis. That was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We enjoyed that.
£10 winning on the table tennis, that was great.
And I think we've got through most of the emails, so we've not done too badly. I think those are our 3 winners.
Yeah.
Condolences to everyone that didn't get a prize, but thank you very much for playing. And we have got more books than we've given out tonight because we're teasing you, keeping you interested. So one night very soon, I don't know if it'll be tomorrow, but it'll be very soon, we'll do another competition. We have another chance to win a signed book because Des has kindly signed 10 for us. Let's see how many there are left after several presenters have been in and out doing their shifts.
But genuinely, folks, I would recommend the book. It really does have some great reviews at the moment. And whilst tonight we've discussed lots of things, slightly more than the cards on the table. We did have a lot of cards yesterday with Michelle. I think that it's interesting to think about the life of a poker player. Actually, I think that it's something that even if you play for fun, you need to think about, partly because these are the guys that in many ways you're trying to emulate. I'm interested by this concept of, do you need to be a bit ruddy crazy to be a decent professional poker player? Was I just too straight to really hack it, cut it? I mean, there aren't any crazy stories about Phil Ivey, are there?
Well, you don't. I mean, the reason that there are a lot of characters and crazy people at the top flight of poker is exactly what Des Wilson said, which is they get into it because they're surrounded by gambling from an early age, and a lot of those people that grow up in a background like that have randomness in their lives, have maybe upset in their lives or whatever. gambling and poker have always been linked. I think now it really is changing, because now you're getting people that are just cold and calculating mathematically, that are learning online and making reliable profits online.
There's one about the kids coming up.
Kids coming up, and I don't think it is how he characterised it. I think how he characterised it was how it used to be, which is if you go on the tournament professional circuit, if you're a hardened internet pro, it doesn't have to take over your life, I don't think. You can play out 8 hours a day like any other job. I just have to say, Zitty has emailed in saying he's drunk and has selected for his classic poker story with a poker pro, me losing the heads up to Mark Bannon in the commentators tournament. All that proves is that he's drunk. That is not the winner. The winners are Jay Peters, Stephen with the Greg Raymer story, and Ian with the Amarillo Slim table tennis story. If you guys could please email us with your details. Condolences to everyone that didn't win. Thank you all for trying. We shared some great stories and made it a great night for us. Had fun, haven't we?
I've shared my stories.
You have. Maybe too many.
No, I don't think so.
No,
What's it all about?
the emotional stuff was great. It's the dating stuff.
Yeah, that was bad.
And the dumpling. We've had fun, guys. Michelle and TK tomorrow from 10. We'll see you again soon. Night, night.